At number 10, we have a pretty obscure and short-lived armor that appears in Fantastic Four number 375, only 25 issues after his true self is finally revealed. So why does he already need a suit upgrade after 25 issues? Well, to absorb the power of a Watcher, of course. Watchers, if you don't know, are one of the most powerful, omnipotent, and oldest beings in the cosmos. We all know that Doctor Doom's abilities allow him to absorb powers from others, but to have a specific suit made so he could actually absorb a Watcher is a huge step in the right direction for him, and a huge step in the wrong direction for the good guys. It's unclear why his normal armor couldn't absorb the likes of a Watcher without an upgrade, but it seems to be due to the fact that this armor is just stronger. And it also has spikes on it, which is always cool. Alright, at number 9 is a pretty fun one. Are you ready? Doom the Living Planet. Okay, this is the suit of all suits. He is literally a planet. Now, this takes the definition of suit to a new place for this list, and it's important we hash this out now. I'm considering any change of appearance of Doom as a new suit as long as his abilities change and or the new appearance also gives him added useful advantages. So, how Doctor Doom finds himself in this position, turning into a planet, is that he's basically getting older and senses that he's gonna die soon. So he basically morphs with the powers of Ego the Living Planet and buys himself more time in existence, in the form of, once again, a planet who wipes out life on Earth entirely, or the humans at least. But what makes this suit, it's a suit, alright? I'm putting my foot down on that. What makes this suit so useful is that aside from it granting so much power that he can take out all of humanity, it grants him more time to live in his old age. So granting extended life sort of surpasses the term useful and goes into the territory of amazing, unmatched, unfairly beneficial. It also allows Doom to spend more time scheming and finding ways to push his agenda and make everyone else's lives just a little harder. Alright, at number 8 is the Power Cosmic suit. In Fantastic Four issue 60, Doctor Doom steals the Power Cosmic from the Silver Surfer, which gives him a huge boost in powers and abilities, naturally. If you're unfamiliar with the Power Cosmic, basically it's a source of almost limitless power, originally honed by Galactus himself. And given Doctor Doom's ability to absorb the power of others, of course his sights are set on gaining this enormous advantage from the Silver Surfer. The only reason why this suit isn't higher up on the list is because it's arguable that these abilities aren't synonymous with the suit he's wearing for his short time wielding the Power Cosmic. However, he does gain an accessory that would argue counts as part of his suit, and that is the Silver Surfer's board. Although for the span of only 2 issues, Doctor Doom is able to fly around the world at unmatched speeds, absorb basically any energy near him, create energy blasts from nothing, and manipulate matter like he is a god. I mean, he arguably is a god for this time, but even if all he acquired was the Silver Surfer's board, that's still a huge benefit that would still put him on this list. Next up at number 7 is the Secret Wars number 1 armor. This armor gains a sleek design and a more vast power set after he absorbs the powers of the Beyonder. During this storyline, the Beyonder takes basically every superhero and supervillain and places them into a world called Battle World to face off for a prize of their choosing. So, as they all start to fight, Doctor Doom sets his sights elsewhere. He decides to focus on the Master of Ceremonies himself, the Beyonder, and he gets what he wants, absorbing the Beyonder's nearly limitless power and transforming into a giant version of himself. This also changes his armor to be more streamlined as well, making him all around more capable of taking on foes in this Hunger Games-esque world. He even uses his newfound power to blast none other than Captain America to smithereens, and also Kang the Conqueror, along with a few other superheroes. He's basically a god, and this suit only sits further back on this list because it may not be the suit itself giving him the extra advantage here, but his armor does change in appearance with his newfound power, so the rules I said earlier still apply. So even if this power comes first, it's forever attached to this particular Doctor Doom suit from this storyline. Fight me on it in the comments. I'll reply to you. Okay, at number 6, we have the suit worn by Victor Von Doom during the Secret Wars 2 storyline. This time, the multiverse is at stake, and multiple versions of Earth are in danger of colliding with one another, so the heroes and villains alike are tasked with trying to stop this from happening naturally. And with Doctor Doom being one of the most powerful out of all of them, he he decides to take the lead on this project. But what really gives him the extra boost and lands this suit near the top of the list is when Molecule Man basically endows him with the power to manipulate pretty much any matter that exists in reality in any way that he wants. And when he's given this strength, his suit also changes its look, giving Doom the new moniker of God Emperor Doom. This suit has a sweet silver design, making Dr. Doom look more like an actual god than ever before. And for good reason too, because he sort of is. And lots of godlike suits on this list so far. Anyway, when Namor and Black Panther try to take him on, they think they've killed him with a spear throw, because he explodes into little pieces. But, much to their dismay, he regenerates, muttering something like, "Ouch, that hurt." This is a brand new level for Victor Von Doom, who can also create whole planets now, from nothing, which he does in an attempt to solve the collapsing multiverse. And, well, do we all agree that this is due to the suit he wears? Maybe not. But he rips Thanos' spine out of his body with his bare hands. So I felt like I had to put this iteration of Doom on the list. His suit changes, and maybe Molecule Man endowed the suit with abilities instead of Victor himself. A stretch, once again. Let's find it out in the comments. At number 5 is the Green Goblin, aka Norman Osborn. As if this villain wasn't enough of a contender for Spidey to deal with before, he actually takes on the Carnage symbiote, turning him into the Red Goblin, as mentioned before. This makes him nearly unstoppable, forcing the good guys to employ anti-venom on him in order to take him out for good. And even though he has since gone back to being the Green Goblin, the character takes another turn that makes him unrecognizable from his past self during the events of Kindred Rising. And by unrecognizable, I mean that he's now working with SpiderMan. When Sin Eater cleanses Norman of his sins, his allegiances change and he becomes a hero. At number 4 we have Dr. Doom. These days, Dr. Doom has taken on some pretty unstoppable powers that some would even describe as being godlike. Big fans of Victor Von Doom might have expected him to reach a point like this at some point because of his insatiable hunger for power, but as of 2022, he's already surpassed at least my expectations of what he was capable of. Although they haven't stuck around until the time that we're posting this, he has taken the powers of the Silver Surfer and even the Beyonder, giving him a whole new mantle of God Emperor Doom during the Secret Wars storyline. Just for scale, this gave Dr. Doom the ability to piece together broken pieces of the universe after the multiversal collapse. And that's a pretty crazy glow up if you ask me. And even if he doesn't hold quite that much power these days, having had that ability has changed the character forever, if you ask me. At number 3 is Darkseid. Originally introduced as a nearly unstoppable supervillain and one of the most powerful in the whole DC universe, Darkseid's powers have been dumbed down quite a bit since then. Although he appears the same, his immense power level just isn't the same these days as it always was. For example, his eye beams were originally meant to kill his targets in one hit, but these days, they don't by any means take out their targets in one hit. He used to be almost unbeatable, but it seems like heroes are making easier work of him than ever as of late. This is probably a result of him appearing more often in the comics, because if he'd kept his same unstoppable status, his appearances would have to be regulated, or else our heroes would be out of commission in the blink of an eye. At number 2 is AntiMonitor. Another case of a villain getting nerfed. AntiMonitor's gotten it bad these days. If you thought Darkseid got taken down a notch, just think how much room there would be to do the same with AntiMonitor, because he is, after all, the most powerful being in the DC multiverse. Just to get an idea of what I mean, back in the day, AntiMonitor takes out multiple universes alone before he reaches ours, and then once he does, it takes a hell of a lot to take him down. In fact, it became one of the most notable moments in all of the DC comics when they did, because it was so difficult. But when he returns from his defeat and joins the Sinestro Corps, he just seems to be in a totally different echelon of power, a lesser one, to the point where the Justice League can take him out on their own these days, which is just weird to see for fans who knew his power level back in the day. At number 1 is the Batman Who Laughs. Enough with the downgrades, because this guy's change is a glow up if I've ever seen one. These days, the Batman Who Laughs has gained so much power that he's known to be basically godlike, and he finds these new powers in the place that he comes from, the Dark Multiverse. After finding a Dr. Manhattan powered Batman in the Dark Multiverse, the Batman Who Laughs gets his mind mind transferred into the body of that hero, acquiring the greater part of Dr. Manhattan's abilities, but with the sinister touch of his usual self as well. The only way that he's able to be taken down is when Wonder Woman finds a way to match his power level herself and defeats him despite his insane power boost.
Number 10. Goblin King. What would happen if Norman Osborn got his hands on the Infinity Gauntlet? Well, this is a hypothetical future that does exist somewhere in the multiverse that we get to explore via the What If Infinity Dark Reign one-shot comic. Now, this comic combines the two events of Infinity and Dark Reign to give us a future where Norman Osborn not only creates and leads his own Dark Avengers team as head of a new government operation in the place of S.H.I.E.L.D. known as Hammer, but also a reality where he manages to get his hands, or more specifically his hand, on the Infinity Gauntlet, complete with its matching set of Infinity Stones. Mainly, Norman uses this gauntlet to fight against the heroes who would still oppose him and his team, but also to deal with some, well, honestly, some daddy issues. You see, Norman's dad seemingly never loved him, and also was actually really mean to Norman, to be fair, and so Norman wants to prove to his father how great he is now, and rub his face in the fact that the son he thought would never amount to anything is now in essence the ruler of the universe. However, this doesn't work out exactly as Norman had planned in this, hypothetical, this alternate universe, and actually ends up backfiring on him in the end. I'm not gonna spoil it because it's a pretty fun twist, but you should check it out. It's a good little one shot. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not subscribe? Do it. Click that subscribe button. It helps me out, it helps you out, helps the planet out. It's just good for everybody, really. Number 9. Goddess Celine. During the Necrotia story arc, Celine Gallio became more than the Black Queen. She sought to also become a goddess over life and death, but really more focusing on the death part, after aiming to gain the ability to basically devour all life on Earth. I mean, she is like a psychic vampire after all, so it kind of makes sense. To do so, she had to perform a blood sacrifice with a specific dagger belonging to her, which she ended up having to recapture. She succeeded in doing this, and for a moment, she actually seemed pretty unstoppable. However, Warpath ends up defeating Celine in the end by using her own dagger to defeat her, causing her to explode into blinding beams of light, with her seemingly also dying. Celine, however, does survive this and later, of course, will return. Even before Celine aimed to become a goddess, she was extremely powerful and worshipped as one, being a super powerful type of immortal mutant known as an external. But Necrotia really was an upgrade in the sense that her godhood wasn't just a title based on her standard power set, but a title earned through enhancing her powers. She also basically had like an undead mutant army, so that in of itself is also an upgrade. Number 8. Mirror Master. Mirror Master is one of the rogues, the Flash's team of villains that he often has to combat against. Like the other members of the rogues on Prime Earth, Mirror Master also ended up getting superpowers. Unsatisfied with just their weapons, feeling that the rogues were too easily defeated again and again, Captain Cold, their leader, devised a plan to give himself and his team members real superpowers by having their DNA blended together with their weapons, thereby making their abilities inherent. For Mirror Master, this ended up backfiring initially with him being trapped within the mirror world. However, eventually his girlfriend and current fiancée in the DC universe, Lisa Snart, sister of Captain Cold and currently a rogue herself known as Golden Glider, who accidentally also ended up getting powers, saved Sam. Once free of the mirror world, Sam made himself a mirror gun to use as a way to go in and out of the mirror world, which his powers now allowed him to control. So basically, at first it was a setback, but later, with the help of a new mirror gun, it became an asset and an upgrade, I'd say. And of course with the help of Lisa, because he wouldn't be free without Lisa's help. Number 7. Spiral. Spiral is just so cool and so scary actually as a villain, and yet we don't talk about her as much as we probably should here. But on this list, she should fit right in, considering that her even being a villain is kind of in part as a result of upgrades that were inflicted upon her. Spiral wasn't always evil. She actually used to be a normal human woman who happened to be a stunt performer. She did not become evil until later on in her history, being set down that path after being attacked by her villainous six-armed future self, actually. She fell in love with Longshot as a result of this attack as well, and decided to return home to the Mojoverse with him, which ended up being, all in all, a pretty bad decision. Longshot actually was quickly defeated upon their return, and Rita, aka Spiral, ended up in the hands of a villain even worse than her future self, the vile Mojo, whom the Mojoverse of course is named after. Mojo kept Rita prisoner for years and eventually eventually had her heavily modified and brainwashed, forcing her to become his loyal ally and lackey, known as Spiral, while giving her 4 more arms. She ended up being driven mad and was taught in the ways of magic spells, which she often casts by dancing. She also was trained in the intricacies of body modification so that she could later modify her own helpless victims, as had been done to her by Mojo. Number 6. Trickster Rex. Trickster is one of the rogues, but we aren't here to talk about a melding of weapons to his own DNA in order to give him powers or anything like that. We are here to talk about the Strength Force. It is like the Speed Force, but a conduit of a different type of energy. Instead of being about speed, I mean, it's obviously about strength, so yeah. Although it does focus on similar principles in comparison to the Speed Force when we're talking at least about, I would say, physics. The Strength Force is apparently all about gravity manipulation and the manipulation of force of motion, which can obviously then be used to make you seem and feel and act stronger, if you happen to tap into, of course, the Strength Force. For Trickster, this resulted in increased bone density and muscle mass, making him bigger and stronger than he was previously. A lot bigger, a lot stronger, becoming more monstrous in appearance. After becoming a host for the Strength Force, Trickster referred to himself instead by the name of Trickster Rex.
Number 5. Moonshade. As an evil cosmic doppelganger of Moon Knight, Moonshade is a pretty tough villain for the fists of Konchu. What makes him even worse is the fact that he is buffed with a portion of the power of a doppelganger of Franklin Richards, allowing him to travel through the multiverse, destroying and absorbing the powers of all the other versions of Moon Knight, causing our 616 Moon Knight to go on a wild multiversal chase to stop this guy from becoming an all-powerful evil version of Moon Knight. It's pretty bonkers. This guy was created by Magnus, who himself was a doppelganger of Adam Warlock, alongside a group of other Avenger doppelgangers in Infinity War number 3. Doppelgangers are normally easy, cheap villains, but this one is actually pretty cool. Number 4. Stained Glass Scarlet. Scarlet Facinera is one of those characters that I can kind of understand when she goes to the dark side. In fact, it's kind of hard to say she even turned to the dark side at all. Scarlet did not have a great childhood. She had a not so nice father who she actually brought to a crispy end with a cigarette bedsheet combo. Eventually, she got married to a husband who was involved in crime and also did not treat her very nicely. He didn't last very long either. Then, their son, Joseph, also turned to a life of crime, which forced her hand to bring him to an end too. Her own son. Yikes. She clearly wasn't very stable. After her son was gone, she became a vigilante, hunting down the people responsible for her son's life of crime. But you can't go around de-lifing people. That brings you into direct conflict with Moon Knight. After her vacation from life, she became a bit of a legend, which resulted in her being resurrected as a minor god capable of controlling shards of glass. Number 3. The Committee. And now for something completely different. You see, the Committee isn't actually a villain. It's a group of villains, that same shady group of villains that hired the Taskmaster for the task of mastering Moon Knight, which he failed. These guys aren't even supervillains. No, the Committee is made up of shady businessmen, political figures, and financial leaders who are trying to influence events of the world in their monetary favor. A pretty classic sinister motive, and one that feels pretty real world, honestly. It was the Committee that actually first hired Moon Knight to take out the Werewolf by Night in Moon Knight's first appearance back in Werewolf by Night number 10 in 1973. The Committee is powerful in a non-super way, and even in Moon Knight's long fight against them, he has not found a way to bring them down. Not yet. Number 2. Sun King. As a representation of Amon-Ra, Konchu's father and rival, the man known as Patient 86 is a pretty powerful supervillain for Moon Knight, and was the main villain for the 2016 Moon Knight story, going from Moon Knight issue number 188 to issue 200. As the representation of the rival of Konchu, Sun King vowed to destroy his opponent and equal Moon Knight. To achieve his goal, he even teamed up with number 10, Raoul Bushman, and together they manipulated and threatened Mark's girlfriend Marlene, messing with Mark and his multiple personalities, and using Beatrice, Mark and Marlene's daughter. He attacked Mark on a more personal level than most other villains had done before, and even caused him to doubt everything he knew. But being the hero, Mark got back to power with the help of all of his personalities and won the day, and helped Patient 86 to a mental facility for treatment. Number 1. Konchu. Whoa, what? Konchu? Isn't Mark the Fist of Konchu? Yes he is. But Konchu doesn't always treat Mark so great. I figured that this would make a really interesting top spot. The amount of distrust that Mark has for his patron god is not unwarranted. Konchu may have saved Mark's life, but he was likely also manipulating Mark to even be in this position for years and years. He often manipulates Mark for his own plans and schemes, and in the age of Konchu, it's heavily implied that he used Moon Knight to take over the whole planet and steal the powers of many different heroes, including Thor, Ghost Rider, Iron Fist, and Doctor Strange. In the newest Moon Knight stories, Mark has even rejected the god himself, but still fights in the name of his ideals, having established the Midnight Mansion, protecting travelers of the night.
At number 10, we have the Thrasher suit. This suit appears in Night of the Owls when the Talons of the Court of Owls track down his Batcave. Batman learned that due to their Electrum implants, the Talons had a weakness towards cold. The Thrasher suit is designed to withstand extreme heat and cold while allowing the wearer to have weeks worth of oxygen while being protected. So, Bruce Wayne turns the air in the Batcave extremely cold, weakening the Talons and taking them out with his Thrasher suit. But this isn't the only time this suit would come in handy. If Batman ever had to face off against another superpowered individual with fire or ice capabilities, this would be the suit that he would be able to turn to. Or I would imagine any underwater fighting could also be done with this suit due to the oxygen tanks built within it. At number 9, we have the Troika suit, or Jean-Paul Valley's armor. When he takes up the mantle, Jean-Paul decides it's time to update the suit he has to wear when it's time to go out to fight crime. His version of the suit is made of Kevlar and Nomex, making it impervious to bullets. He designs this suit preparing to face Bane and the mass breakout at Arkham Asylum. So, this suit is designed to face serious physical damage from an onslaught of angry prisoners with makeshift weapons. It also protects against intense heat in case of Molotovs or flamethrowers or anything like that. The suit also has a matte black color scheme, camouflaging him against the darkness in the city while he goes in to face this event. This suit is similar to the original, but it makes it onto this list because it's one that a lot of people don't talk about very often. And it just looks really cool. At number 8, there's Batman's Predator suit, which in Batman vs. Predator, he designs to face off against the alien creature. When in battle with the Predator, he's badly wounded and partially blinded, so when he adopts this suit to continue the fight, the sonar capabilities of the suit help to compensate for his blindness, and the exoskeleton of the suit gives him a boost of strength when he needs it most. In this battle, Batman hits Predator with a tranquilizer, which could have come from the suit as well. This suit is perfect for stealth missions with high risk for combat. The sonar would allow him to infiltrate any space without detection, and the exoskeleton would protect him from any resistance he might meet along the way. And when he's able to find his target, he could take them out initially with one of those tranquilizing darts. It's another suit that he made use of in a very specific scenario, but it could be very useful in the future. So don't hang this one up quite yet, Bruce. Keep it. At least until you run out of Batsuit space.
Number 7, Cold Iron Armor. Everything in the War of the Realms related stories is just so metal. The Cold Iron Armor first appeared in Iron Man Volume 5, number 24 back in 2014, and came to be when Tony was on a stealth mission in the dark elf homeworld of Svartalfheim. The armor itself is actually worn over top of another suit, and it's completely made of iron. Iron is actually a metal that is lethal for dark elves, so it's kind of weird that Iron Man wasn't the first one called, but this is actually an Iron Man armor. Like, actually iron. Its weapons include a fireable iron hook, a cloud of iron nails, and these super sweet iron claws on each arm. Just look at this thing.
At number 6, we have the Batwing Suit, worn by David Zavimbi's successor, Lucas Fox. This suit has a faceplate, retractable cape, as well as an interior skin that reads his health at any given time and even offers first aid if needed. This could include hardening around a broken limb to hold it in place, or administering painkillers if there was no chance of taking a break from battle. The Batwing suit also has invisibility that uses holographic sensors. This suit doesn't allow for flight, but it does have a glider for jumping between buildings or escaping a tough situation. There's also a really bright bat symbol right in the chest that can blind or otherwise distract any opponents in combat. It also just looks really cool when it's lit up. This suit can also be controlled by voice commands, kind of like the Iron Man suit, and get this, it can actually take blood samples and compare them with samples from the Gotham City Police Department crime database. It also has hands-free phone capabilities to boot, which is pretty nice, and the suit can also change Batman's voice in case he needed to replicate someone else's, as well as a smoke screen. There's even more stuff that I'm leaving out, but I'll just leave it at that for now. This thing is just out of control and makes for a great tool to keep the user safe and ready for a fight. Okay, number 5, we've got the SpiderMan 2099 suit. This spider suit has a cape. Yes, it's kind of small, but it's a freaking cape. First worn by Miguel O'Hara in Spider-Man 2099 number 1, this suit was originally designed for Miguel to wear at a Day of the Dead celebration. Yes, this suit was meant for partying, but very soon became much more than that, with an upgraded version actually incorporating jet boots. I think this is such a cool addition to a Spider-Man suit because it makes a lot of sense to enhance his swinging capabilities. It's also got GPS sensors, allowing the wearer to navigate around the city effortlessly. Sadly, in the newer iteration of the suit, the cape was scrapped, but in its place are these tiny web wings that allow the wearer to glide a bit more in the air. This suit is just a lot of fun and would be very useful for day-to-day crime fighting around the city because it allows this Spider-Man to reach new speeds in the air and I would imagine longer times between web swings. It also just looks really cool again. Okay, fine, they all look cool, but I just have to say it still. At number 4, we have the Stealth Suit, which was used very briefly in Superman Unchained number 2. This suit was designed for Bruce to find a way to hide from Superman. It's designed to take the wavelengths that the suit emits and hide it from superpowered beings. Another plus of this suit is how light it is. Although Batman is usually up against run-of-the-mill human criminals, this suit would probably be the best suit for a real infiltration during an operation against anyone superpowered. Considering Batman is often outmatched in situations against superpowered beings, being able to hide and move around with a stealthy suit is hugely useful. And this suit is so obscure, I figure that only the real fans even know about it. Batman really has a knack for putting these suits together when he needs them most and then scrapping them. I hope they're made out of recyclable materials. Alright, at number 3 is the Hydra Supreme suit. In an alternate reality during the comic book event Secret Empire, Captain America is actually a bad guy, taking on the look of a darker, more brutal soldier than his original self. His shield has a more pointed, angular design to it like that of a medieval knight, and the suit brings much more power to the one who wears it. This suit, when paired with the cosmic cube fragments, allows for the user to take control over Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. This, on its own, is enough of a point for this suit to score high on this list, but there's more. This suit also helps Captain America change the course of reality. Yes, this is sort of the cosmic cube doing this, but when paired with the armor, the wearer is also almost entirely impervious to harm. So I'm gonna argue that it's fair in this case. While wearing this suit, this evil version of Captain America actually strategizes successfully enough to take over Washington, D.C. and eventually all of the United States to try and instill his own order. Although his intentions are not by any means pure in this reality, this suit is undoubtedly one of the most powerful that any version of Steve Rogers wears, and for that reason, it deserves a spot on the list. At number 2, we have Batman's Insider uniform. This suit is created with extremely high-powered technology, allowing for teleportation. This suit is so cool because it's able to connect with Justice League teleporters, allowing the wearer to teleport anywhere on Earth. This, I'm pretty sure, is a first for any Batsuit, but there is a catch. The suit requires a lot of energy and needs to be recharged pretty often. But that's expected for a piece of human tech like this. The good news is that aside from being able to be charged by any typical power source, this suit can also be recharged through any source of power being directed at it, which hints at some pretty cool absorption powers against superpowered opponents. This suit was designed to have Batman fit into the Justice League more seamlessly with abilities that allow him to adopt powers from everyone else on the team. Although all the powers are limited to the energy supply of the suit, it has super speed mode to replicate the Flash, heat vision mode to replicate Superman, either through the eyes or the helmet's like central eye, willpower mode inspired by the Green Lantern rings, which offers a big concentrated blast of energy like the Owen power rings, and the suit also has camouflage mode inspired by Martian Manhunter, allowing the user to turn invisible. It also has a cord like that of Wonder Woman, which forces those ensnared in it to tell the truth, also being able to zap that foe with an electric shock just for a little bit of inspiration. And to top it all off, the suit allows for flight using magnetic fields. Just thought they'd throw that on the end there. Batman can fly in this suit. Okay, at number 1 we have the Justice Buster. This suit just looks absolutely insane, and it was used to take down the entire Justice League when Batman went bad on them. It's obvious by its appearance that it has enhanced armor, taking hits from supervillains with actual super strength, which is usually unheard of for Batsuits. And some of its very specialized offensive functions are its bind of veils, used to incapacitate Wonder Woman, its hyper fast servers, used to process information faster than the Flash can run. This part of the suit was most expensive, as well as a hyper fast cannon that can take out the Flash despite his super speed. This thing fires faster than Batman can even sense anything has happened due to the servers mentioned before, which is insane. He's able to take down Aquaman with his powdered magnesium carbonate cannon, which binds Aquaman's body in this goopy substance, preventing movement. An electromagnetic nerve tree used to defeat Cyborg, a citrine neuralizer which is used to defeat the Green Lantern, prevents him from using his ring. The fist of the suit actually contained red suns collected from dead solar systems, which is a weakness of Superman's, making his punches super effective against Superman in this suit. It also has plasma shields to defend against Superman's heat vision and thermal capabilities to protect against freeze breath. Wow, that's a mouthful, that's a lot of stuff, and I didn't even get all of it. This is objectively the most powerful suit in Batman's arsenal, having so much in it and so much use that he can actually take out one of the most powerful superpowered alliances in the cosmos. Wild.
Number 10, Red Goblin. Well, we've recently got a glimpse at a new Red Goblin who also seems to be more heroic in nature. Normie, the grandson of Norman Osborn, there was also a time when the Carnage symbiote was attached to another, much more sinister presence, Norman Osborn himself. Norman Osborn is typically known for his Goblin persona, one of, if not the, arch nemesis to Spider-Man, depending on, I guess, your own opinion. I feel like some people might say Doc Ock is, I personally would say Norman is, but you know, to each their own. However, there was a time when Norman was no longer the Goblin, having been forcefully cured against his will. In order to reclaim his Goblin abilities and persona, he teamed up with Carnage, as Carnage could help the serum work on Norman once more. Bonding together, they became Red Goblin, a terrifying enemy who succeeded in killing Flash Thompson, and almost also defeated Spider-Man himself. In fact, they would have defeated him if it weren't for Peter's own wit, as he convinced Norman to ditch the Carnage symbiote or risk having to share his victory over Spider-Man. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love when villains get super powerful upgrades, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9, Captain Cold. The leader of the rogues in the DC Prime Earth universe, or at least one of the leaders, Leonard Snart became frustrated that his and his team's tech were not enough to defeat the Flash. As a result, he made a plan to use their weapons in order to imbue them all with powers. They did this by infusing their DNA with their own powers, blending their weapons with themselves in order to give themselves powers, although really this was kind of Captain Cold's decision himself. Everybody else didn't really have as much of a say. While this worked out well for Captain Cold, who gained cryokinesis powers, it did not work as well for some of the other members, who did gain powers, but ones that cost them in terms of their individual lives, being less easily controlled and manipulated as Leonard's, at least in some cases. Number 8, Lady Deathstrike. I mean, if you know the story of Lady Deathstrike, then I'm sure her upgrades won't be super unbelievable, but also if you know the story of Lady Deathstrike, then her villain upgrades may actually still be pretty unbelievable, because I feel like her story itself is unbelievable. Her origin story is just such a sad one that once you know about how she became a villain, you're probably going to be somewhat shocked and also feel for her, despite all the horrible and unforgivable things she has done as a villain. I know I personally have felt for her, and I think her story is super tragic, so let's get into that. Yuriko Oyama is the daughter of Kenji Oyama, a brilliant scientist but cruel father who actually invented the adamantium bonding process and was known as the criminal overlord Lord Darkwind. He created the adamantium bonding process and then it was stolen from him. Despite the fact that Yuriko was frequently mistreated by her father and even given a permanent face scar by him, which he gave to all his children, how nice, as a reflection of his own facial scarring that he suffered as a result of a World War II battle, Yuriko would eventually grow to emulate him anyways. Initially, she despised her father and even ended up killing him while protecting the hero Daredevil, which you'd think means that she would grow up to, become a hero and do some good stuff. However, even once free of her father physically, she could not escape his hold on her mentally. Her lover, one of his assassins, who was blindly devoted to him, ended up taking his own life following Lord Darkwind's death. This caused a shift in Yuriko, who then set out to carry on her father's legacy instead of condemning him, which you'd think she would have, cybernetically enhancing her entire body and continuing to upgrade it more and more as time went on. And that's how she kind of becomes basically a major Wolverine villain, because she's all like, that adamantium bonding process, I must get Wolverine and take it back of my father's legacy. Number 7. Heatwave. Heatwave was another of the rogues who was part of the genome experiment to have their DNA combined with that of their weapons. However, Captain Cold's transformation was much less horrifying, I'd say, than Heatwave's. Like Captain Cold, Mick Rory's weapon was also elemental in nature, with his being a heat gun as opposed to a cold gun. His DNA combined with his weapon gave him pyrokinesis abilities, which looked like they were pretty terrifying to him initially, as his whole body ignited in flames. Not gonna lie, I'd also be pretty afraid of that. That doesn't sound like great powers to me. I do not like fire, so I like to be a fair distance away from fire. Safety. Number 6. Absolute Carnage. During the Absolute Carnage event, Carnage received one of the most epic upgrades ever, especially considering at the time, he was pretty dead. Carnage had returned to Earth from space and in essence basically burned up on re-entry. Despite the symbiote's aim to try and keep its host, Cletus Cassidy, safe, the two entities combined as one both perished on their return. However, this wouldn't be the end for them, because they would be resurrected by a cult that worshipped the god of symbiotes, Null, seeking to appease and awaken him. And also because it's Carnage, and Carnage can never stay dead, even when you're like, but there's no way he could come back now, right? He still comes back. Carnage would be revived using the Grendel symbiote, making him extremely powerful, especially as he continued along on his mission to devour and collect the codices of all symbiote hosts, located in their spines, whether these hosts were superpowered or not, alive or dead. All in all, it was a very scary time. Number 5. Nimrod. Nimrod has become even more intense in the last few years, managing to make the overall silly sounding name of Nimrod strike fear into the hearts of mutants and X-Men fans everywhere. Nimrod, despite actually often being associated with the idea of someone being inept here in North America, is actually a word in a literary sense that can mean a skillful hunter, which actually makes it, I think, a very fitting name for Nimrod. But yeah, I didn't know that even until I was writing this, and then I was like, oh. Does sound silly though, ya Nimrod. Skillful Hunter is definitely what Nimrod themselves has become associated with in terms of all the crazy stuff they've done. The Nimrod of Days of Future Past, Earth 811, is a type of Sentinel that originally traveled back in time to fulfill its mission of destroying the X-Men. In a past future viewed in Powers of X, we also learned that Nimrod has the potential to be the end of mutant kind and humankind as we know it. Humans basically become tools to be used by Nimrod to destroy mutants, and mutants are all but extinct in this future. Number 4. Extant. The thing about time traveling characters is that you can have a few different versions of them, whether that be in one single timeline or across multiple timelines. In the case of Extant though, we are fortunately keeping things pretty linear thus far on this list. Extant is actually the name that Hank Hall took up after his Monarch persona, and if you thought Monarch was bad, Hank Hall's Extant is arguably worse. Extant is Monarch, but now not only advanced, but with the ability to time travel. He teams up with Hal Jordan's Parallax, and the two villains plan to take control of time itself so that they might manipulate it as they so desire, altering reality itself. Number 3. Immortus. Immortus is one of the most powerful enemies of the Avengers, who was actually revealed to simply be an alternate path that the villain Kang the Conqueror could have chosen. Because there is so much time travel in Kang's past, there are a lot of alternate reality versions and versions from future and past timelines floating around that sometimes even come into conflict with each other, in addition to also fighting heroes along the way. Immortus is one such alternate Kang self. Lord Immortus is what Kang would become while choosing to ally himself with the Timekeepers. He is virtually immortal, using advanced technology to dramatically slow the appearance of aging, and often spends his time traveling through it, fixing various issues with the timelines and maintaining them, which of course grants him a lot of power. Eventually, Immortus would be killed, but even after his supposed death, his corpse still played a key role in a few different plots. So even when Immortus was dead, he was still doing stuff, apparently. Number 2. Professor Zoom. Professor Zoom is Eobard Thawne, the main villain of Barry Allen's The Flash, who traveled back in time just to mess with the Flash's life. That's how much he hates him. He has also been known as Reverse Flash before in the comics. Eobard Thawne hails from the future of the 25th century in DC Comics. Being a very fast speedster powered by the negative speed force, there is much that Eobard can do and accomplish as a villain. Aside from traveling back in time and to other dimensions, he can use his super speed to not only be super fast, but also be super powerful in battle, as his speed also inherently gives him super strength. He also possesses the ability to heal and the ability to manipulate molecules, allowing him to phase through things. Despite being a villain in the New Earth continuity, Thawne even used his molecular manipulation powers at one point to save the DC universe, which I think makes you pretty powerful in my mind. Number 1. Kang the Conqueror. While Kang might look a little silly in the comics with his, his purple helmet and his floating time chair, he is not someone who should be underestimated. Kang hails from the 30th century, where he is believed to either be the descendant of Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, or Mr. Fantastic, aka Reed Richards. He is known as Nathaniel Richards in his original future reality of Earth 6311, where he hails from. In fact, a young Nathaniel Richards would go on to become Iron Lad while running from his future self Kang, only to learn that he actually needed to become Kang, or would actually kind of risk the destruction of time and the multiverse itself. That is maybe the most powerful element of Kang. He's like a Marvel absolute, and even though young Nathaniel wanted to become a hero and in essence defeat Kang, he had to accept his destiny or risk destroying multiple universes that have been shaped by a version of Kang and his actions. Kang is basically like integral. If you don't have Kang, everything dies, but if you have Kang in the reality, he's probably gonna try to mess with you. It's like, there's no good answer to Kang.
At number 10 is Desperado. Although Desperado has always been totally jacked, he was originally known as more of a threat to the Justice League through mind manipulation. During the Silver Age, he would only typically use his telepathic powers before anything else, but these days, it's a different story. Although these changes did start to take place way back in the 80s, the character has come a long way since the days when he would sit on his throne and twiddle his fingers most of the time. Now, he seems to do a lot of the grunt work himself, even looking larger in size these days than ever before. And even outside of the comics, Desperado's appearance in the Arrowverse offers a totally different look into the villain. He takes on a human form for much of the time, who is, well, let's just say he's not as big as Desperado, nor does he have much musculature to him, no offense to that actor. Nor does he have a third eye or anything that a comic book fan would expect, and when he's in proper form, he just seems a lot less demonic and cunning, more like Hellboy's very serious detective older brother or something like that. At number 9, we have Anton Arcane. The penultimate villain to Swamp Thing, Anton Arcane has always been a threat as one of the most prolific evil scientists in all of DC. But when Swamp Thing finally kills Anton during one of their many confrontations, back in 2016 I think, the villain goes to hell and basically becomes a demon. Having been a pretty tame foe for most of the Swamp Thing comics, Anton Arcane's physical changes have made him almost unrecognizable now that he's a demon. And what's worse is that he continues to bother Swamp Thing and his niece Abigail, but now with the added demonic powers in mind. So he's changed quite a bit, both in looks and power set. At number 8, we have Psycho Pirate. The way that this villain has changed since the Infinite Crisis event is unmatched. Although he looks relatively the same, he's gained such a power boost that he now works with the likes of Darkseid and Alexander Luthor. After surviving the crisis, he comes out on top, getting his hands on what's known as the Medusa Mask. And what this helps him do is basically summon beings from the old multiverse, which, as you can imagine, is a very powerful ability, especially directly following the event itself. And even though he's been killed by Black Adam during the events of Blackest Night, Psycho Pirate's corpse is brought back to life life as a Black Lantern. And as you can imagine, this gives him a whole new look and increases his power level. He loses the Medusa mask in this ghoulish form, but even without it, he appears totally different than how we're used to seeing him. At number 7, we have Doomsday. The primary change with Doomsday isn't something that's been gained, but something that's been lost. A very notable power of his, actually, and that is his hyper adaptability ability. In fact, I would even argue that this was his main power, and what it meant was he could learn from past losses in battle and change his physiology to prevent himself from being killed in the same way twice. I don't know why this has been dropped, because aside from it being the defining characteristic of Doomsday, it was just a really fun ability to watch because it made every encounter with the villain a new challenge for the heroes, which would ultimately make for an exciting read. But for whatever reason, this power has basically been left in the dust, making Doomsday that much less unique from any other bruiser type villain, at least in my opinion. At number 6, we have Dr. Octopus. Something that the less avid readers may not know about this villain is that he's been going back and forth between heroism and villainy for some time now. And not only that, Otto Octavius has recently taken on the mantle of Spider-Man, donning the superior Spider-Man armor outfitted with the mechanical arms and everything. He's also been taken over by Venom recently, as well as the Carnage symbiote. Although he's known to be back to his evil ways and his classic suit in 2022, there is no telling if he'll jump back into the Spidey suit once more. He's already gone back and forth a number of times, even in the last few years, so I wouldn't be surprised if he did it again.
Number 5, Cheetah. I mean, the Cheetah outfit has changed a lot since her first appearance, and so has the character. The first Cheetah villain we were ever introduced to in the pages of 1943's Wonder Woman issue number 6 is no longer the Cheetah we have in comics. Literally. Much has changed about the character, including her identity, her origin, and her overall look and power set. The original Cheetah was Priscilla Rich, a jealous debutante who dressed up in a skin-tight cheetah onesie. It's a look, I gotta say. Now we have Barbara Minerva as the main Cheetah, who instead of dressing up actually has a humanoid cheetah form, having been transformed basically by a god. Very different looks and takes on this character, but I definitely say that Minerva's is better overall. Sorry Priscilla, it's just cooler. Like, I mean, then you get to actually kind of fight like a cheetah lady, as opposed to just a lady in a cheetah costume. Number 4, Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate have always been cool, but over the years their looks have gotten a lot more detailed, badass, and in some cases, a lot hotter. I'm here for the sexy Crime Syndicate, I must say. I'm feeling it. The Crime Syndicate are actually one of the earliest villain teams to take on the Justice League, making their first appearance in 1964 in Justice League of America issue number 29. At least the earlier continuity version of that team, that is. Because this is DC we're talking about here, so you know, now we're on Prime Earth and that was before that, but anyways. Back then their outfits were less sleek and more blocky, such was the time. They were also a lot less sexy back then overall as a team, and had a lot less independent flair, with their looks being just a little bit more rough and basically similar adaptations of the team members that they were mirroring. I mean, Owlman literally has Batman's look from like the neck down almost exactly, with only the Stark owl on his head setting him apart. It's a look. Number 3, Kang the Conqueror. Okay, so Kang still looks pretty crazy, even in the comics, but he's come a long way from that wild purple and green eyesore when it comes to his cinematic appearance at least. We saw our first, likely of many, Kangs in the Disney Plus streaming series Loki. Here Kang was played by the amazing Jonathan Majors, and instead of sporting his very blue face and purple helmet, he was dressed simply in a nice purple robe with green tunic, pants, and sandals underneath. A nice nod to the original design while still providing its own unique take on his look, and a take that is quite a bit more sensible and stylish. Still, an air of flamboyance in how he's dressed, but not so over the top that it undermines how intense, inevitable, and intimidating He Who Remains, aka an alternate Kang, appears to be here. Number 2, Lex Luthor. Lex looks a lot cooler and a lot more dapper in modern comics than his original appearance. Remember when he used to wear a purple suit with green pants? What is it with villains in purple and green? Especially over at DC. What's going on over there? It's kind of a very shocking combo of colors, especially for someone like Lex. Although I will admit, put it into a mech type suit, gloss it up a bit, and it works a little better for me. I do like it. Lex used to wear this purple suit with straps crossed over it, and a very Dracula-esque high collar with bright green pants and purple boots. Fortunately, he now more keeps to suit and tie looks, looking a lot more polished and refined, and occasionally mixes in some badass mechanical armor, which makes him look a lot more intimidating than that collar ever did. Number 1. Killmonger. Talk about villains who have seen an upgrade. In Jungle Action issue number 6, we got our first look at Killmonger. I don't even think you'd recognize him today if your main experience with this character came from the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Black Panther and Michael B. Jordan's portrayal of him. The original look for Killmonger involved a lot of spikes, as opposed to a lot of horrifying scars. He didn't initially mark himself for his kills, instead, he was just really pointy. He also wore white pants and a red sash, with no shirt initially. We've come a long way since then, with Killmonger having even been to space and back, where he ruled over the Wakandan space empire. And thankfully his look has changed quite a lot since then. I'm partial to his symbiote look personally, still a little spiky, but you know, it doesn't overdo it. Nothing wrong with a little bit of spikes, you just don't want to have too many.
Number 10. The Arctic Armor. First appearing in Iron Man number 318 in July of 1995, the Arctic armor was made to withstand the harsh temperatures and conditions of the Arctic. While mainly used by Tony so he could access his secret Arctic bunker, the suit could be used in other cold weather situations, like if he had to fight an Arctic-based villain. Being in Canada, I would absolutely find a use for this suit. For example, I could use it to walk to work without the air hurting my face. Number 9. Hydra Armor. We know that the Iron Man armors all have some underwater capabilities. We saw it in the first Avengers movie, but the Hydra armor can work at underwater depths of up to 3 miles down, surviving the crazy water pressure that comes with being deep in the sea. I'm gonna be honest, this couldn't be me. The ocean makes me wet my tighty whities. But I guess when you've got like a tri-beam style unibeam, mini torpedoes, electrical field generators, and an octopus style black ink thingy, you are a bit more safe. Number 8. High Gravity Armor. I like this one. Even if its design is goofy, it's something I think would actually need to be taken into account. This suit was made to help its wearer withstand the increased gravity conditions of hyperspace travel, helping the body keep blood in the limbs, not just the torso, and those huge feet helped with moving around. The suit helped Tony withstand 50 Gs, but his actual limits haven't really been explicitly mentioned. It didn't stop Tony from passing out from G-Lock though, and it definitely didn't stop him from puking, but it cleaned him up and disinfected him, just like a good friend after a party.
Okay, at number 7 we have the DC 1 million Batsuit. This one resembles the original Batsuit quite a bit, but it's just got so much more going on that should give it a good spot on this list. It has abilities like camouflage, night vision, it has a fireproof cape, a reinforced exoskeleton, gliding wings, armor, a hard drive that holds over 10 times the amount of data as the Bat computer, which he could also wirelessly connect to if he needed to. The suit also has electrical absorption and holographic capabilities. This one is just so supercharged that for the average Batman confrontation, no one would stand a chance. It still sits further back on the list, but only because some of these ones coming up really go above and beyond in the face of some pretty tough villains.
Number 6. Godkiller Armor Mark II. Bet you didn't know that Tony Stark had a celestial-sized suit of armor powered by 8 nuclear reactors that is just casually orbiting Mars. Or I guess if you read Avengers Volume 8 number 5, you would. This armor entered the fray when the Dark Celestials attacked the Earth and battled alongside giant versions of She-Hulk, Thor, and Ghost Rider. While there are other versions of the Godkiller armor, this one is my favorite. And the fact that it was kept orbiting Mars just in case really feels like something Tony Stark would do.
Okay, at number 5 is the Paradise X suit, which is barely a suit at all. It's more of a single American flag wrapped around the naked body of a godlike Captain America. In this storyline, Captain America has died along with other superpowered beings we know, and they are living, or rather existing, in a celestial realm called Paradise X. And instead of the Avengers, they're called the Avenging Hosts. It's pretty out there, but basically Captain America is a ghost type entity with mystical powers in this storyline, and he is able to fly. He's also able to shapeshift and tap into the memories of the other entities in this Paradise X realm. So yeah, that's all well and good that he's super powerful, you say, but how is his suit useful? Well, this one may be arguably one of the most useful suits on the list, considering it's the only thing that's preventing us all from witnessing this supernatural Cap's celestial parts. I'm serious. That's the genuine reason why this suit takes a spot on this list. Sure, I could argue that it supports his supernatural abilities, but we all know it's just a cloth. A very useful cloth that protects this comic book series from an X rating. Useful? I'd say so. Bit of a stretch? Maybe. I thought it was funny.
4. The Ablative Armor. This armor was pretty unique. It consisted of tons and tons of little honeycomb-shaped tiles that are all held together by a force field. The idea was that the tiles would break on impact, better absorbing impacts that a solid piece of armor was less useful for. Anytime a tile would be destroyed or fall out of the force field, it would be replaced by another tile, which is good for a suit of armor. These tiles could even separate from the armor itself and be used as projectiles or as countermeasures. Overall, it's just an armor with so many unique and useful capabilities, and I hope we see more of it. Hey you nerds, before we get on to the top 3, I just wanted to say a quick thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, why not hit us with a like and maybe subscribe? It really helps us out to continue giving you videos. Alright, moving on.
Alright, at number 3, we've got Spider Armor Mark III, otherwise known as the Ends of the Earth suit. This suit is created in Horizon Labs by Peter Parker as a last resort to help take down the Sinister Six. But I guess Peter works well under pressure because this suit is insane. Starting with the helmet, it has super hearing capabilities designed to pick up on Chameleon's heartbeat. The helmet could also communicate with Spider-Man's fellow teammates in battle with a comm link system. It also has a holographic sensor allowing the wearer to see through Mysterio's holograms and illusions, and it's capable of repelling Electro entirely, turning him back into human form on command, which is pretty cool. The suit allows for Spider-Man to fly with jet boosters and enhances web shooters that allow the user to fire more webs than the typical suits. Not only that, but the utility belt on the suit carries multiple cartridges of different types of webbing, also spider tracers and ice spiders. And listen, I'm leaving out a few things for time's sake too. Listen, the only reason why this suit doesn't take number 1 is because its abilities were catered pretty specifically to the feat of taking down the Sinister Six. So, in other cases, it might not be quite as effective as it is facing off in this specific scenario, but that's only one small fault for a very useful suit. Pretty nuts.
Number 2, Thor Buster Armor. Now most people know about the famous Hulk Buster suit thanks to the MCU, and just because it's awesome. But did you know Tony has made a Thor Buster armor as well? There are actually a few Asgardian based Iron Man armors, and they are all extremely awesome and useful. But to me, an armor to counteract the God of Thunder directly seems the coolest. He used the armor to go toe to toe with the God of Thunder, who is already massively powerful. But Thor was actually boosted up by the power of the Odin Force at the time. The armor was able to manipulate Asgardian energies like the Odin Force, which served Tony well. He was even capable of stopping Mjolnir mid-fight. Unfortunately, Thor destroyed the suit's reactor, forcing Tony to eject. But if this armor could trade punches with Odin Force Thor, it would be extremely useful facing any Asgardian related threat. Number 1, the Virtual Armor. This suit is probably the most unique of all of Tony Stark's armors. It's also the most recent suit on this list. The Virtual Suit first debuted in Iron Man 2020 Volume 2, number 5, when Tony Stark had his consciousness pulled out of his body to save his life, and it resulted in the Virtual Armor, which was made from the resources of the 13th floor, which is basically a virtual reality built of solid light. Look, it's hard to explain, okay? The Virtual Armor could allow Tony to create any weapon he can think of. It augmented his strength, it protects against weapons fire, and it's invisible by default, acting as almost a force field around Tony. It can separate to form a prison-like bubble. The suit even somehow still allows him to fly and protects him from the vacuum of space. I have no idea how it works. Like, at all. And it's the most comic booky thing I've ever heard of, but its almost limitless possible capabilities easily make it the most useful Iron Man suit.
Which starts our list at number 10 with Spider-Man's Bulletproof Suit, or Spider Armor Mark II. This suit is designed when Peter Parker loses his spider senses, which we all know would make him much more susceptible to bullets specifically. So instead of taking a break and hiding away for a while, or being too heroic and going out and getting shot, Peter just creates a new and improved spider armor to face off against Massacre, a mass murderer. Massacre had captured a bunch of hostages, but when Spidey swoops in, he makes easy work of the killer by easily deflecting his bullets. The suit's magnetic webbing also interferes with the villain's ability to remotely activate traps, which I'm not sure was planned or not, but hey, the suit comes through again for Spider-Man in that way too. This suit was very useful for this very specific situation, but sits back on the list just because there are simply much better suits coming up. Okay, at number 9, we've got Spider-Man's Electroproof Suit. This suit was created in Amazing Spider-Man number 425 in an effort to get a one-up on Electro, a villain who we all know has electric powers. The reason why Peter Parker hadn't come up with this idea before is that it just didn't seem necessary, as Spider-Man could usually find ways to outmatch Electro, but this time Electro had found a way to supercharge himself and become even more powerful than ever before. So Spider-Man decides to design a brand new suit, which also just looks really cool. Although it was first presented in the comics, the suit can also be used in 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2 video game for PS4. Okay, number 8 goes to the SP//DR suit. Kinda says spider in a fun way. This suit is featured in the hit animated movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but was first introduced in the comic event of the same name. The suit is controlled by Penny Parker, who's taking over for her late father, who used to man the suit. What's interesting about this armor is that it's partly controlled by a living radioactive spider that lives within it. And to use the suit, Penny has to get bitten by the spider, which she dutifully does. The suit is massive, offering tons of protection, and it shoots extra durable webs out of its integrated web shooters. And a suit that's mechanized and able to shoot webs even stronger than those of the original Spider-Man comes in handy when facing off against bad guys like Penny's universe's Mysterio. In a big face-off, the suit proves useful when Penny is able to avoid the effects of a nauseous gas emitted by Mysterio, so it seems like the suit also offers some pretty effective filtration. Not the most versatile suit, but an interesting one that might come in pretty handy in certain situations. Alright, at number 7 is his Soldier Supreme suit. During the Infinity Wars storyline, Gamora captures all the souls in the universe and puts them into a soul gem, which also accidentally creates what comes to be known as Warp World. In this dimension, every soul that she captures has fused with another, creating all these beings that are inhabited by 2 different souls each. Not only that, but history is rewritten, including all of these beings as though they'd always existed. And that's where Soldier Supreme comes in, an amalgamation of Captain America and Doctor Strange. And you betcha that this amalgamation gives us a new suit design as well, which looks a lot like what you'd expect, a Captain America and Doctor Strange hybrid. Soldier Supreme's abilities allow him to have a perfect mixture of Doctor Strange's magical powers and Captain America's leadership skills. During the Warp World version of World War II, we see Cap healing downed comrades, while also leading them into battle, making what becomes one of the most powerful and useful iterations of Captain America out there. The only reason why I don't put this one at number 1 is because it could be argued that it isn't the suit giving him these powers, but Gamora's spell. But his suit does appear entirely different when he's transformed, and that's enough to squeeze it on this list. At number 6, we've got Spidey's Future Foundation costume. This suit is designed by the Future Foundation, which is kind of like the revised Fantastic Four, and it has a really cool black and white finish. But that's not what this list is about. The suit is also extremely handy and implements some pretty futuristic technology known as 3rd generation unstable molecules. This technology allows Peter Parker to switch from the black and white look to the classic red and blue, or even his civilian clothes in an instant with just a thought. The suit also can't get dirty due to the unstable molecules, which is pretty cool. But the most useful part of this suit is probably its stealth capabilities, which allow Spidey to go almost completely invisible. This feature is particularly useful when he needs to swing around at night without being seen. It's just a great suit that helps Peter Parker's already formidable powers to shine even more, and it's just one of the coolest looking ones, in my opinion. At the 5th spot, we have the Trinity armor, which Batman uses to go into battle with Bizarro. The look of this armor in the original comics is pretty clunky, but it was still able to do some really cool stuff that the original suit wasn't able to do. It could throw electrified nets, grenades, and it had solar lasers attached to the fists, which prove helpful in his alongside Wonder Woman. In these cases, a stronger suit comes in handy for Batman, who sometimes finds himself alongside more powerful beings with superpowers, allowing for more of a fair matchup for the masked vigilante. The suit has a lot of armor as well, and parts to the costume that give him more strength, and robotic pieces that allow for more speed. The suit protected him from full-on punches from Bizarro, which says a lot about the man-made suit. Bizarro does get the best of Batman after a few too many superpowered punches, but the suit served its purpose until Superman was able to arrive and finish the job. Okay, at number 4, we've got the Iron Spider armor created by Tony Stark. In many realities, Peter Parker either turns down this suit or retires it quickly for various reasons, but thankfully, he does make use of it a few times. We've all had the pleasure of seeing how this suit looks in all its 4K MCU glory, but what's really great about this suit is what it can do. Firstly, the most notable feature, visually speaking, are the mechanical spider arms, which are actually called Waldos for some reason. These arms actually have cameras on the tips of them to peer around corners, and small grippers built to the end of the tips so they could act as extra arms for climbing and getting around. The suit can glide as well, allowing Spider-Man to move around a bit in the air and underwater, because the suit also has a state-of-the-art mask filter that allows for nuclear, biological, and chemical filtration, as well as 8 minutes of clean oxygen if the wearer needed to explore something underwater. There are so many more things to cover as well. This suit is basically just as protective as the classic Iron Man suit, and with all these extra abilities, it just adds so much more power to Peter Parker's already impressive abilities.
Number 3, the Nano Iron Man armor. Now this is a bit less of a traditional armor. When battling Fin Fang Foom, Tony initially used the giant Fin Fang Foom Buster armor, but when that failed, he instead shot a pod of thousands of Nano Iron Man armor microbots into the dragon thingy's blood. The bots were then remotely operated to investigate Fin Fang Foom and then fight his antibodies and travel to his brainstem, where the armors were used to destroy the control disk. Nanobots are a technology we're trying to develop in the real world to solve thousands of problems, mainly medical in nature. So this is an extremely useful armor.
At number 2, we're graduating from the term useful and veering more into absolutely overpowered with Spider-Man's Captain Universe suit. Alright, fine, this isn't really a suit per se. Like, it's not something any old Peter Parker could slip on and off, but it's still a suit and it's still extremely useful. This suit was created when Spider-Man was involved in a lab accident, but unlike the radioactive spider situation, this time he's actually given what's called the Uni-Power, making him one of the most powerful Spider-Man characters we've ever come across. He's got Univision, which endows him with a sort of cosmic consciousness, allowing him to sense things not just coming at him in the macro world, but he can sense things on a subatomic level, bringing the Spidey senses to a whole new meaning. This power also allows him to get people to tell the truth, which is pretty handy, I'd say. In Captain Universe form, Spider-Man can also manipulate energy, allowing him to fly. And above all this, the actual suit allows Spider-Man to withstand extremes in temperatures, allowing the wearer to traverse basically any environment on Earth and possibly beyond. He also has enough strength to punch the Hulk into orbit. And yes, it may be arguable that this isn't the suit allowing for this kind of power, but the suit and the powers kind of come together in this instance, so it remains on the list. Okay, at number 1, it is the Amazing Spider-Man suit, or Spider Armor Mark IV. Okay, here we go. This suit can detect magic, infrared and X-ray beams, scan injured people to determine their injuries, and even detect plasma levels in blood to help administer first aid on a superhuman level. And in this iteration of the Spider Armor, the different webbing is available not by switching out cartridges on a waistband, but by voice command. So the wearer just has to say the word and the web shooter will go from shooting regular webs to electrified webs to concrete webbing, which is a web with such strong durability that it was able to stop an Aztec god in its tracks. The suit also has an array of defensive capabilities like administering antidotes if the wearer comes into contact with poison, as well as stealth and camo abilities as well. I'm missing so much just to keep this one short, but it's fair to say that this suit is the most widely useful as of posting this video, and I just can't wait to see what comes with the Spider Armor Mark V.
Number 10, Raoul Bushman. We're gonna start this list off right, with probably the oldest and longest time foe to Moon Knight and Mark Spector. Raoul Bushman was a mercenary that hired Mark Spector and pals for a while, until Bushman turned on them after Mark's conscience didn't like the idea of ending archaeologists' lives for the treasure they discovered. This was actually the inciting incident that had Mark chosen by Konchu in Moon Knight #1 back in 1980. Raoul doesn't have any powers, just a very particular set of skills. Specifically, Bushman is an expert swordsman, marksman, and unarmed combatant. And he has a ton of experience in guerrilla warfare and battle tactics. Oh, he's also been brought back from the afterlife twice, and even though he has been beaten so many times by Moon Knight that he has developed an eating problem, he keeps coming back for more. Number 9. Black Spectre. As a veteran of the Vietnam War, Carson Knowles didn't have things too great upon his return to America. Not a lot of people were fans of these veterans, which is a little unfair. He barely could keep himself supported with his job, and then he found out his son had passed over the phone. Carson snapped. He beat a mugger to the threshold of living and turned on the whole world for how poorly he was treated and for the passing of his son. He became Black Spectre, and one of the first longtime villains of Moon Knight. From Moon Knight 25 in 1982 to Moon Knight Volume 5 number 19 in 2008. Interestingly though, Black Spectre doesn't really have any powers either, similar to Mr. Bushman. Just a knack for planning, some political power, and a strong driving force. While not anywhere near the most powerful, he does have an awesome costume. Number 8. Taskmaster. Anthony Masters is not specifically a Moon Knight villain. He's more like an everybody villain. Well, everyone who is a street level martial artist at the very least. Taskmaster is hired by whoever is paying the highest amount, and his photogenic reflexes allow him to match or beat most opponents. He has fought Moon Knight after the Superhuman Registration Act was brought into place, when he was hired by a powerful shadowy group of villains who will appear later on in this list. Unfortunately for Anthony, his power does not let him copy moves that utilize other superpowers, which gives Moon Knight and other heroes a bit of an edge. Hey there, travelers of the night. I am not anywhere as cool as Moon Knight. It's true. But if you're at least enjoying me or this video so far, let us know with a like, comment, or even a subscribe. Alright, on to the rest. Number 7. Morpheus. You know, I didn't know a lot about Moon Knight until recently, and I'm so glad, because he actually has some really cool, scary, and interesting villains. Robert Markham suffered from a viral infection. He was prescribed an experimental substance that alters his DNA, making him look very different, and causes him not to need or want sleep. Due to his lack of sleep, he developed extremely potent psionic abilities. I kinda doubt that's how insomnia works, but whatever. Robert, now calling himself Morpheus after the Greek god of dreams, swears revenge on the doctor who prescribed the experimental substance that did this to him. And Moon Knight is there to stop him. He's got really unique powers, and you should check him out. Number 6. Shadow Knight. Shadow Knight is actually Randall Spector, the younger brother of Mark Spector. He was poked with a bullet and left in Egypt, assuming he was abandoned by his brother and Raoul Bushman. When he returned, he started going on a spree of de-lifing, targeted at nurses as bait to bring out his older brother. Randall wanted the power of Konchu blessed upon Mark, but was denied, which drove him to become really jealous. Like, really jealous. He underwent chemical treatments while working with Nephthys. That pushed him even further into insanity and obsession with removing and replacing his own brother. He comes so close to achieving this goal so many different times.
Number 5. Infinity Ultron. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe animated series from Disney Plus titled What If, Infinity Ultron was revealed as being the main boss at the end of that first season, with all the heroes from alternate realities who were previously introduced in previous episodes having to band together to become the Watcher's guardians of the multiverse. In the end, Infinity Ultron is defeated, being forced to erase himself. However, for a while there, he actually threatened the very fabric of reality, thanks to him retrieving and assembling the Infinity Stones. However, I will say, I don't think we have much to fear in the comic book world from a threat like this. I think the Infinity Stones, or as they were previously known, the Infinity Gems, typically actually have a rule in the comics where they can only affect the reality they're from, so traveling through the multiverse with them wouldn't really work in the comics, because then, you know, you'd go to another reality and then they'd just be useless, so yeah. Number 4. Cheetah the God Killer. Remember when Cheetah got her hands on the God Killer blade? I remember. It was a wild time in comics. This all happened as part of the Year of the Villain event. At the end of issue number 75 of Wonder Woman Volume 5, the 2016 volume, Cheetah ends up being led to the God Killer blade by Lex Luthor's drone. He urges her to follow his drone so he might lead her to the blade, but before that refused to tell her anything before they actually came upon it. Pretty trusting, actually, I would say, to just follow that drone blindly. Mainly, I assume this was done not for any actual reason towards Cheetah, but also to make us, you know, eager to turn the page and be like, where's the drone going? After being given the God Killer, Cheetah is ready to once more confront her nemesis, Wonder Woman. But Lex also urges her not only to go after Wonder Woman and kill her, but also all of the Amazons. The God Killer blade that Cheetah receives as a gift from Luthor is specifically tied to her own genetic pattern, thanks to a nanotech modification. For those unfamiliar with this weapon, it is insanely powerful and can basically shapeshift to accommodate whoever uses it and whatever they specifically need it for, and can easily do damage to even the most durable of superpowered beings or the most divine. When damaged, the blade itself is also capable of self-repairing. So this was a pretty crazy upgrade for Cheetah. Number 3. Joker, King of the World. Well, we already talked about a period where Joker gained reality warping powers on part 1 of this list. This isn't the only time that the Joker has gotten such power. No, no, no. In fact, weirdly, this has even happened, I would say, more than twice in comics. It's happened a few times. I wanted to give a shout out and a thank you here to Corey Graves from the comment section on our first part to this video, who actually suggested this specific occurrence of when this happened, during the Batman vs. the Incredible Hulk crossover comic. So thank you for shouting that out. It allowed me to go back and be like, oh yeah, that happened, and it was so cool. Here, Joker gains an upgrade via an alliance when he allies himself with the Shaper of Worlds. The Shaper of Worlds is actually from Marvel Comics and is a being who can create extremely powerful illusions, which in essence are so real that they appear to shape reality. I mean, you could say he just shapes reality, but they are based in illusion, so I just thought I'd give you some info. The Shaper of Worlds can do this on a planetary level, which is pretty wild. Joker teams up with the Shaper in order to help the being cure their madness, and in exchange, the Shaper will basically make the Joker's dreams come true, making him King of the World. Having finally found the mind that the Shaper was looking for, one unique in all the universe with great ambitions and dreams. Apparently everyone else is dreaming way too small. Fortunately, Batman and the Hulk, while initially pitted against one another, by the end of the comic managed to team up and defeat both of these foes. Yay. Well, sort of. I mean, they definitely defeat Joker. The Shaper kinda just is like, I'm blasting off again, bye! Number 2. God Emperor Doom. God Emperor Doom is one of my favorite villain upgrades of all time, because with God Emperor Doom also comes his own battle world and all the alternate characters and stories which reside within it. It's a cool story that took over and affected all of Marvel, a little story known as Secret Wars. How did Dr. Doom become God Emperor Doom? Well, this was a result of the incursions, kind of. While confronting the Beyonders, no one but Doom was really willing to take on their power and save everything. In so doing, he became the new ruler of the multiverse, and in order to save it from all of the incursion collisions that were happening, created his own reality which combined all of the universes together, becoming its ruler and its god. Doom also held this power largely thanks to Owen Reese, aka Molecule Man, who he kept kinda locked away, hidden away, and used the powers of to make himself like a god. So this wasn't Doom's own inherent power, he was kind of borrowing from Molecule Man. However, in the end, Doom would lose this power in a fight between him and Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, who had survived the destruction of the multiverse in a life raft. Owen would appoint Reed worthy to wield his power, and Reed would use this power, along with the help of his family, to restore the multiverse to normal, restoring most things back to how they were previously, and modifying some elements in an attempt to improve them. In fact, he even gives Dr. Doom everything he wanted for a while by making him think that the Fantastic Four were gone, and, you know, fixing his face for him so he's no longer scarred, which is actually really sweet. Number 1. Zoom. Well, most people simply know the Speed Force when it comes to origins of powerful forces in the DC universe. It turns out this isn't the only power type that one can get through connecting to forces. There are many different force types in the universe, and the villain Hunter Zolomon, recently known as Zoom, manages to gain access to not just one, but two of these additional force types. In fact, actually I think at one point there are 3 additional ones that he's connected to. One of them is the Sage Force, and as it sounds, the Sage Force is like a fount of wisdom, greatly enhancing the intellect of those that it connects to. This gave Solomon super genius level intellect and also granted him psionic powers, including telepathy and telekinesis, which honestly pretty wild, especially because Hunter's already like OP in my mind. Solomon ended up using Barry Allen and Wally West in order to gain access to and connect with the Sage Force, as he discovered there was a force barrier in his way, which basically prevented these other force types from like coming into the world. He tricked the two of them to break this barrier and then was able to gain access himself to multiple forces at once, including the Sage Force. Number 10. Savior. Savior is a future version of Tim Drake who becomes Batman. Doesn't sound so villainous, right? Well, this future Bat version of Timothy Drake takes things a little too far, which is what makes him more villainous than heroic, despite taking up his own version of the cape and the cowl. Drake in the Titans Tomorrow reality is known by the vigilante codename of Savior, and has gone to extremes to do what he believes is right, meaning that Drake doesn't hold back and kills villains or even heroes who get in his way, eliminating them permanently. Drake and the world were seemingly transformed by a crisis event. In addition, Batman was also killed by Batwoman, which heavily shaped the life of Tim Drake in this reality, who would then do what he swore he would never do and continue on the Batman legacy in Bruce's place. Number 9. King Thanos. King Thanos is an alternate version of Thanos who hails from a pretty terrible future where he has successfully destroyed almost all life in the universe in an attempt to win the favor of Lady Death. In this universe, Frank Castle also becomes Ghost Rider after being killed and then making a deal to become Ghost Rider, returning to Earth in an attempt to avenge the fallen heroes of Earth, only to return too late, with Earth pretty much being decimated by Thanos already. As Ghost Rider, Castle lost his mind from loneliness, but would later have no other choice left but to become the Herald of King Thanos. King Thanos actually has a few people left to kill and needs help, so he actually sends Cosmic Ghost Rider, aka Frank Castle, back in time for a younger version of himself to basically help him in his final battle. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more time travel future based lists, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Kronos. Kronos is a somewhat confusing character in DC continuity because there are multiple versions of him, and this confusion isn't entirely the fault of alternate futures or time travel either. It's actually more to do with the trajectory of the DC main continuity. Kronos, not to be confused with Kronos, no H, back in the New Earth continuity was known to be a clock-obsessed villain of Ray Palmer's Captain Atom. However, his clock obsession would soon develop into an obsession to perfect the means of time travel, and this obsession would translate to his Prime Earth continuity counterpart, who was an agent of Argus specializing in, you guessed it, time travel. There is also another version of Kronos, which is an entirely different person, Walker Gabriel, who found Clinton's tech and then more used it to become an anti-hero instead of like a full-blown villain. Number 7. Doctor Doom. Weirdly enough, in a way, Doctor Doom is also a villain from the future, as he does like to travel back to the past to enact some villainous plots. He traveled back in time to study with Morgan Le Fay, and he's also gone back in time as well with Iron Man to the period of Arthurian legend. One of his most iconic plots in my mind as well was when he wanted to use the Fantastic Four to help him steal Blackbeard's treasure by traveling back in time and recovering it, which seems like a really easy way to possibly mess up the timeline for a reward that somehow, I don't know, it doesn't really seem worth all that trouble. I know it's a chest of treasure, Doom, historical pirate treasure no less, but is it really worth possibly changing the future for? And messing with time? I don't know. Number 6. Monarch. Monarch is another villain from the future who actually, it turns out, was originally a hero. I love these reveals, especially when you are the hero finding out that you become the villain. Gasp. Monarch is actually Hank Hall, who ends up becoming a villain in a dystopian future after his partner Dove dies. For those who don't know, Hank Hall is the hero Hawk of the superhero duo Hawk and Dove. Hank wouldn't be the only hero to become known as the future villain Monarch. In fact, it seems likely much of the villainy behind Monarch comes from the suit that Hank and later Captain Atom wear while donning that mantle. In fact, in the case of Captain Atom, it seems the suit is very much to blame here. Suit making people evil and crazy. crazy. Number 5. Bizarro. Bizarro is a villain who is known for being insanely powerful, as he's kinda like an evil reflection of Superman, whether that be the version of Bizarro who is like a defective clone or was created to be the opposite of Supes by Lex Luthor, or the version of Bizarro who is in essence an alien from Bizarro World, or Hydra, where everything is the opposite to our world, to Earth. People speak backwards, bad is considered good, even the formal name of the planet is technically just Earth spelt backwards. Hydra. Bizarro, however, may be super strong like Superman, that isn't a direct opposite I guess, although his cold vision is, but he does not share Clark's intellect. Usually Bizarro is presented as being very dumb or simple-minded, at least in comparison to Superman, who is in essence an effortless super genius. However, with Bizarro 2, a defective clone of Superman created by Lex Luthor, he was, for a time, given a genius intellect as well. Unfortunately, this didn't last, but still, a super smart Bizarro is a terrifying, or perhaps, depending on the circumstances, more comforting thing to imagine. Number 4. Madeline Pryor, Queen of Goblins and of Limbo? Madeline Pryor is known as the Queen of Goblins, but did you know that she also recently became the Queen of Limbo? It is true. Now initially in the comics, Maddie was introduced to us as a love interest of X-Men member Cyclops, aka Scott Summers, and herself a normal human, so it would seem, without superpowers, who just happened to look like Jean Grey. From there, we learned that her looking identical to Jean was actually no coincidence, as she was in fact her clone, created by Mr. Sinister himself. Learning of this and tapping into her own power as basically a spark of the Phoenix gave her life, learning of this and tapping into her own power as well as experiencing constant mistreatment by her husband and those she believed she could call her friends, the X-Men, caused Maddie to suffer a mental breakdown, which resulted in her becoming evil, reaching out to the demons of Limbo and making a deal with them, and then kind of becoming the Goblin Queen as we know her. This caused the first Inferno event. After being defeated, initially Maddie would continue to pop up every now and then, often returning as a villain. More recently, she was permanently killed but received a new lease on life when she was resurrected on Krakoa. It seems she was ready to turn over a new leaf and forgive those who had mistreated her in the past, moving forward with her life. How healthy. She became the new Queen of Limbo after Magic sought to retire as ruling monarch of the Hellish Dimension, with Magic even going super far to be like, no, I trust Maddie, I think Maddie will be great. However, we later learn in the Dark Web event that Madeline actually wasn't ready to give up her grudges, as she used her newfound power over Limbo to amass a demon army and once more attack New York City. Turns out her pretending to be over everything was a bit of a ruse because she still had some stuff that she needed to resolve. This too, however, would be resolved, but for a time, Maddie was back to being a villain and with a power boost from Limbo. Number 3. Golden Glider. While Lisa Snart's powers may initially not seem like an upgrade, considering, well, they did leave her in a coma, they're actually insanely powerful, and once she kinda came to embrace them, made her a fairly even match for the Flash, who is also known for being one of the most powerful heroes around. Definitely one of the most powerful heroes in my book. Like the other rogues, Lisa herself also received actual superpowers during the experiment that was conducted to give the members of the team superpowers. In fact, Lisa wasn't actually one of those who intended to gain powers here, but merely got hers by accident, because the whole experiment went a little wonky, there's an explosion, she got caught in the crossfire of that explosion that granted everyone else superpowers, with her astral form being separated from her body and her physical form being rendered comatose. Eventually, she would recover from the explosion, but as Glider in her astral form, would go on to recruit her own rogues team, becoming a leader of the team for a while. In her astral form, Lisa is extremely fast, so fast that she can actually appear virtually invisible to most. Not only that, but she can also weaken a speedster's connection to the Speed Force, temporarily disrupting it. See what I mean? Extremely powerful. And Lisa didn't even ask for this upgrade, she didn't even want powers. Number 2. Adamantium Infused Bullseye. Maybe one of the most random upgrades to have happened, maybe not, considering at the time, kinda almost everyone was like getting adamantium, despite the fact that it's, you know, supposed to be a super rare material in the Marvel universe. But hey, there was a time we were obsessed with adamantium, kinda everyone was getting a little bit, a little piece. Bullseye ended up getting himself some adamantium pieces, some upgrades, which made him an even larger threat to Daredevil in the future. His bones were experimentally infused with the metal substance, or encased. or whatever, making him akin to someone like Wolverine in terms of his durability, and meaning he couldn't just easily be taken out like most human opponents. After all, while Bullseye may be an extremely skilled marksman, possibly the most skilled marksman in the Marvel Universe, he was just that, a human with skills. But with the adamantium upgrade, which he received from Lady Deathstrike's father, Lord Darkwind, he was now much more unstoppable and deadly. I will say this, unlike Wolverine, Bullseye does not have a completely coated and infused adamantium skeleton. Only pieces of adamantium coat parts of his skeleton, but this also includes his spine, which is still pretty scarily durable, and I mean your spine is a lot of the things that you need to be durable if you want to do crazy stuff, so he can do some pretty crazy things now. Number 1. Emperor Joker. Emperor Joker has to be one of the most unbelievable villain upgrades we've seen thus far in the comics. Emperor Joker ended up stealing his powers from Mr. Mxyzptlk, the 5th dimensional imp who is sometimes a mischievous villain to Superman, and at other times kind of like an oddball ally depending on the story and depending on the writers. Mr. Mxyz only planned on giving Joker a small amount of his power, less than 1% I believe of his power. However, the Joker, being the trickster he himself is, managed to trick Mxyz into handing over 99.99% of his power instead. Ugh. Using this power, Joker ended up conquering the world easily, becoming Emperor Joker, even going so far as to literally devour China and making Batman his prisoner, who he would constantly torment and kill every single day, resurrecting him the next day to kind of do this all over again. In fact, Batman was left with no memory of this afterwards, having to have his mind wiped of these events, as otherwise he would have been so tormented by this experience that he would have not been able to continue on as a hero because he would have been broken. That's how bad it was for him. Fortunately, in the end, Superman ended up defeating Emperor Joker. Not able to stand against him in terms of power levels, Superman defeated Joker by realizing his weakness, that the Joker really could not go on or continue to exist without Batman, which was why he couldn't bring himself to destroy Batman permanently, and that also meant that he couldn't destroy the universe permanently, so basically that's it. Made him a little unstable, and then they were able to take the power back. Woo!
At number 10 is the Yeoman America armor. This costume is introduced in Avengers Volume 3 issue number 2 when Morgan Le Fay uses a reality distortion wave, which turns all the Avengers into medieval versions of themselves. And Steve Rogers' look totally changes as well, with his armor resembling that of a medieval knight. What gives this suit a spot on the list is the fact that it comes with a sword, and considering how powerful Captain America is without a weapon, just imagine what he can do wielding a sword. Now, there are downfalls to the suit as well, like it appears as though it has reduced mobility due to the loincloth thing, the crude knee pads, and the hood. And one might argue that since it's a medieval costume, the shield would be made of a traditional steel or iron instead of vibranium or other reinforced metals. But still, this is a list about useful suits, and there's no doubt a sword definitely has its uses. At number 9 is the original Howard Stark redesigned suit. Okay, fine, you've probably heard of this one, but it's pretty dang useful, so it deserves a spot. Firstly, it's the first time he's given his round shield with the star and stripes, and it's made of, as Howard puts it, all of the vibranium they had at the time of its creation. This means that this suit marks the first time that Steve Rogers has all the freedom he wants to use his shield as a weapon without any recoil from his blows. The suit is also made with carbon polymer flame resistant materials, a bulletproof helmet, and a utility belt with a gun holster on it. And we all know that in the comics, Captain America doesn't typically have a gun. So this is a huge plus for this suit. This makes this suit a great choice to take out of the closet if ever Captain America is faced with a mission where he might come under fire and have to return some himself. Pretty handy if you ask me. At number 8 is the Nomad suit. Unless you're a real Captain America fan or you just spent 2 days researching Captain America suits, you may not know about this one. Basically, back in 1974 in issue 180, Steve Rogers decides he's done with all the politics of being a hero and puts down the costume altogether. In its place, he decides it's time to design himself a brand new suit and go under the moniker of Nomad. And because of his background as a comic book artist, Steve decides to design it himself using regular materials, and and he gives himself a cape. Okay, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you're probably punching your screen right now. Like, how can a costume made out of like a polyester blend be useful at all for Captain America? But here's the thing, this suit is useful for any time that Steve Rogers needs to go under the radar or blend in with the night. It's also got a lot better mobility than his typical suits without all that bulky armor in his way. So I would argue that throwing on the Nomad suit is probably one of Steve's best options for a truly stealthy suit that he could use for covert operations. No one would recognize him, and even if they did, they might have a harder time chasing him down with what would probably be increased mobility and camouflage in the shadows. A bit of a stretch? I don't know. Let me know what you think about that one in the comments. At number 7, it's the Stealth Suit, also known by fans as the Big Time costume. After facing off against the new Hobgoblin in the Amazing Spider-Man number 649 and 650, Peter goes back to Horizon Labs where he'd been working a day job and designs the suit to be better, well, suited for the fight. This costume is extremely useful in that it's got a few different settings for different matchups. In camo mode, the suit turns green and keeps him invisible both visually and audibly to anyone who he doesn't want seeing him. This means that through certain lenses held by his allies, the green outlines can be seen so they know where he is in battle. The other mode is called anti-sound mode, which turns the suit red, and it cancels out all sonic-based attacks like the new Hobgoblin supersonic attacks. The suit also has anti-metal spiders that can shoot out the top of his wrists that will eat away at and dissolve metal. And the suit can also repair any tears in the fabric at the command of the wearer's thoughts. Okay, at number 6, we have the Commander America suit, worn by a descendant of the original Captain America, Steve Rogers V. This suit appears in an issue of What If that poses the question, what if Cap and the rest of the team went up against the Guardians of the Galaxy? This suit has 5 generations of work done on it, giving it some added features that make the suit much more useful than the original. One of which is the space helmet attachment that allows the user to travel in space. This is a useful development considering that there are some major events in the Marvel Universe that take place in the expanse of the cosmos, as well as on other planets with different atmospheres. In a hypothetical situation where Steve Rogers has a closet full of all the suits on this list, past and future, this suit would probably get taken out more often than you might think, for any conflicts that take the team into the void. It's also got some cool chrome shoulder pads as well for when he gets hit in the shoulder. Okay, fine, it's mostly about the helmet.
Number 5, Deep Space Armor. This is probably the one armor on this list that most people have heard of. This suit was created when Tony Stark took a vacation from Earth and went out into space with the Guardians of the Galaxy. The suit can use an autopilot in emergencies and even allows Tony to control suits hundreds of light years away back on Earth. It's a modular suit too, allowing for things like enhanced back thrusters and wrist-mounted explosive launchers. It even has an extension that allows for lunar landings. It can travel at warp and sub-warp speeds, which is useful for space travel. Just overall for space travel, this suit is the most useful of all the Iron Man armors.
At number 4, we have the 2099 suit developed by Alchemax. On Earth 23291, the Captain America identity belongs to a woman named Roberta Mendez. And in this reality, the Captain America suit is extremely powerful with a few new capabilities that make this suit stand out hugely from the rest. The 2 main features that really give this suit the edge are the energy wings and the energy sword that the suit is equipped with. Considering Roberta also has the super soldier serum coursing through her veins, everything that comes with the suit is an automatic plus. In the very start of the first issue of Secret Wars 2099, we see a bounty hunter trying to take a shot at Roberta, but is totally overpowered by this new flying ability of hers. And there's no question that anyone wearing the suit can call on these abilities, making these new powers not exclusive to the wearer of the suit, but of the suit itself. So with the types of threats coming at this reality's Avengers, they know that their leader will have no problem in both offensive and defensive stats. This definitely beats out a lot of the other armors worn by any Captain America across all realities. This superhero just isn't often seen equipped with much other than a shield and maybe a sidearm, so energy weapons, definitely a huge advantage for any Captain America as far as I'm concerned. Okay, at number 3, we've got the Suit of Sorrows. This one is really unique both because of its age and the tales that it actually has magical capabilities. Built during the Crusades in 1190 CE, this suit at first glance seems like a basic piece of armor, but it's known to actually cause the user to become more violent. And when it's gifted to Batman by Talia al Ghul, this proved to be true. The reason why this suit sits higher on the list is that it's the only suit that I could find which is actually known to be enchanted in some way. Every other suit uses some kind of complex human technology, but a magical Batman suit just had to fit on this list. Besides, it could come in handy if Batman ever needed to go extra hard on some of his enemies, helping him to abandon his usual heroic tendencies to help him go a little harder on the tougher foes. Not sure who or when this could be useful, but it just strikes me as one of those pieces that Batman might want to keep around for a day when he's really matched against someone pretty bad. At number 2 is one you most likely have heard of before, but it needed to make it on the list just because of how insanely useful it is compared to the original suit, and that is the Sam Wilson Falcon uniform. This suit is given to Sam Wilson when Steve Rogers wanes off of the super soldier serum and gives up the mantle of Captain America. And it is a huge upgrade. Taking on the abilities of Falcon and Captain America at once, this suit allows for flight and rocket and machine gun fire out of the wings. On top of this, we see how strong these wings can be when used to shield Wilson in battle. This gives the suit the added bonus of a nearly indestructible full body shield made of vibranium, on top of the iconic handheld shield passed down with the Captain America mantle. The shield can also clip into a holster on his back, giving him protection from behind when he doesn't see it coming. This suit is such a major upgrade from the original and could probably be maneuvered by anyone who puts it on, giving it sophistication. So there's no arguing that this suit on its own could be pretty useful to anyone with fighting and piloting skills, and it's probably one of the closest things that Captain America has to an Iron Man suit, other than our number 1, which is the exoskeleton suit. This is an extremely useful suit for Captain America given the circumstances he finds himself in issue 437. Sometime in the future, Captain America has been rendered completely paralyzed after contracting an illness from the super soldier serum. So, none other than Tony Stark designs him a suit that, much like the Iron Man suit, can actually get him up and walking around again, and fighting around again, and in arguably an even more effective capacity than ever before. The suit is designed to offer extreme protection due to the sophisticated armor and some other nifty effects as well, like beams that he can shoot out of his palms that cause severe cases of vertigo, and magnetic gloves and missile protection that offered Cap a lot of good defense against serious threats. Yeah, they're not the most destructive features, but this is actually intentional. Tony Stark decides to keep the suit entirely non-lethal to keep Steve Rogers' values in line, allowing him to face evil without stooping to their level. So not only is this suit useful to compensate for and basically cure his paralysis, but it's also arguably a really great suit to return to if he's ever facing an offensive threat that might require heavy armor. He can also call on the armor to attach to him within seconds because he was, totally paralyzed. But this is also a feature that's basically unprecedented for Captain America and would be useful with or without the plight of full body paralysis.
Casper Cole. Before Kevin Casper Cole became the White Tiger, he was a narcotics officer. Seeking a promotion, he and a few other officers began performing unsanctioned drug busts. Casper wore a bulletproof Black Panther costume that he took from his boss, which absolutely gave him an edge. Like when he and his other officers were ambushed by a crooked cop that resulted in the other officers being put in the ICU. Casper was suspended for not wearing his vest, and he posed as the Black Panther for a time to bring down Sal and the 66 Bridges gang. Other than the usual benefits of a Panther habit, Kevin's suit sported a trench coat and many more pockets and pouches as he wielded actual 9mm pistols. I almost want to call it Detective Panther suit. Number 9. Hell's Kitchen. After being ambushed by Dr. Doom, who put T'Challa in a coma, another had to take up the role of Black Panther. T'Challa lost his enhanced abilities, and after the events of Doom War, he rendered all of Wakanda's vibranium inert. So, no powers, no vibranium, and no longer the ruler of Wakanda. How about a vacation to Hell's Kitchen? After being possessed by a demonic entity, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, needed time to recover and rediscover himself away from his home, and he left the defense of Hell's Kitchen to T'Challa. Enter the Black Panther Man Without Fear story. As the now depowered street-level defender of Hell's Kitchen, T'Challa had to rely on the basics, such as his body armor, homemade gadgets, and his fighting ability. This suit doesn't really display its own usefulness. I'd say that instead, it displays the usefulness and ingenuity of T'Challa himself. Stop right there, criminal scum. kidding. You're only a criminal because you're so criminally good looking. Okay, I've given you a compliment. Now you give me one by liking and subscribing. I think this is a good trade-off. I boost your confidence. You support this channel so we don't fall into the black abyss of obscurity. Cool, thanks, love you guys. Number 8, wedding suit. A bit more of an unconventional pick for a list like this. Back in 2006, during the time of the Marvel Civil War storyline, a wedding took place. A wedding between the King of Wakanda, the Black Panther, T'Challa, and the X-Men, African princess, and some people say goddess, Aurora Monroe. Storm. The event itself was built up for a few issues in the 2005 Black Panther storyline, and in issue number 18, it finally took place. In this event, T'Challa dons a more ceremonial panther habit, a gold necklace and a gold belt, and the classic cape. This suit doesn't serve a special function in combat outside of serving as a wedding suit, but marriage is its own kind of combat, am I right?
Number 7, Anti-Transformer Armor. Coming to us from Earth 7642, the crossover Earth that gave us some great stories like Hulk vs. Superman, Uncanny X-Men vs. Teen Titans, and of course, New Avengers and Transformers. Made out of carbonite nanotube transistors and powered by 15 amperes, this armor was created when Tony heard some rumors that giant alien robots, i.e. the Transformers, were hiding out on Earth. It was Transformer sized and made specifically for combat with them. But the armor wasn't fully combat ready at the time it saw action though. It had severe energy management issues. Specifically, it was extremely energy intensive and ran low on power very quickly. Additionally, it was also prone to overload if power was supplied from an outside source. Nevertheless though, it served Iron Man well in his confrontation with the Decepticons, but was ultimately beheaded by Megatron, and Iron Man then exited the oversized suit and continued combat in his Extremis armor. Funnily enough, after the battle was over, Tony thought about what improvements he could make for another anti-Transformer suit, planning to make it even bigger than the last. Check it out for yourself, starting with its first appearance in 2007's New Avengers / Transformers, number 2.
Number 6, Proto Habit. Oh, Deadpool, you silly, amazing character. Okay. So basically, what happens here in Black Panther vs. Deadpool number 4 is that Mr. Poole heads to Wakanda to steal a bit of vibranium to help him heal a mailman. Wade actually ends up grabbing a red ceremonial Wakandan necklace and puts it on to go and make his escape. What he did not know is that this necklace was actually a prototype Panther habit. The suit analyzes his DNA, and since Black Panther has everybody's DNA on file, it remakes itself on Deadpool, adapting to his usual color scheme and the weapons he likes to use, christening himself Panther Poole. Or Dead Panther. No, Panther Pool. Panther Pool's better. It also pretty much brings him up to par with the true Black Panther, which is proven when the two get into it, until Wade's pocket-sized teleporter gets damaged, and he teleports to the vibranium mine, which he then teleports to right outside New Jersey.
Coming in at number 5, we have the black and gold Iron Spider suit. This suit is a masterpiece. The black and gold go together so well. You can't not look like a boss while wearing something like that. Also, it has the extendable metal arms that every other Iron Spider suit has. Now, I'm well aware that this suit is only worn by Miles for a little bit. I know that it's mostly worn by Aaron Davis, who is the Prowler and also Miles' uncle. Man, I think you have to have family issues if you want to become a hero. It's like the trauma makes you better at saving people or something.
Number 4, Panther Battle Armor. Okay, bouncing right off of that, Shuri actually dons another Panther armor during the events of Doom War that I just really want to talk about. Shuri wore a battle mech armor that further amplified her strength, endurance, and durability past its already peak human levels to superhuman levels. The battle suit also had new cool weapons like this pair of vibranium powered daggers. Some versions of this armor that the Dora Milaje wore have flight capabilities with these really sweet heli drone like packs. The battle armor also has sensory arrays that made her an even more formidable adversary. Overall, just an armor that boosts the already technologically advanced superhuman to another level.
Number 3, Mark 38 Uru Armor. Making its debut in the Fear Itself storyline, the Uru Armor, also known as the Iron Destroyer, was an enchanted bleeding edge armor that was based off the Destroyer, enhanced with Asgardian magic, and covered in Asgardian Uru metal. During the War of the Serpent, Odin Borson let Stark have access to the forges and created an arsenal of Uru weapons to combat the enemy forces raising the Earth. In order to acquire his own enhancements, Tony merged the systems of the bleeding edge armor with Uru, turning it into the Iron Destroyer until the end of the battle. This specific suit's capabilities are not entirely known, but since it is an improvement on the bleeding edge armor, then we can only assume it still has all the capabilities of that suit, such as regeneration, that whole energy blade and deflector shields thing, and of course, the normal weaponry that you would expect. Now, just imagine all of that, coupled with the almighty power of Asgardian magic and a near indestructible metal. That would make for one ridiculously OP suit. So why not check it out for yourself in 2011's Fear Itself number 7, and let me know what you think of it in the comments below.
Number 2, Heavenly Armor. This new thrice-blessed lightweight suit first appeared in Black Panther Volume 4, number 13, when he teamed up with Blade to fight vampires, which just the idea of that kind of sounds really cool. But this suit just makes it better. This suit has been consecrated in the name of the Panther God, and alongside the suit, he also wields the ebony blade of the Roman Catholic Church. This suit offers him other defenses and abilities than his regular suit. For example, it defends against attacks of a mystical nature. This Panther habit also allows him to fly if he reaches the right speed. It is also incredibly badass. I just wish we got to see more of it. Number 1. Wakanda Hulkbuster. Everybody knows Tony Stark has the Hulkbuster armor. Incredibly useful for taking on the Hulk if he ever loses control. But what I, and I'm sure a bunch of you didn't know, was that Black Panther has a Wakandan Hulkbuster. And boy, this armor is beautiful. It was created to go up against the new, totally awesome Hulk, Amadeus Cho. Unlike his Bruce counterpart, Amadeus Cho's Hulk is very in control, but everyone and their mums are afraid of what could happen. The Hulkbuster itself has sonic cannons, can fire spore clouds, and absorbs and magnifies energy. The armor eventually fails against Amadeus when he releases an EMP-like blast, rips the Buster's arm off, and rushes off to help his sister. But this armor very nearly brought him down, and all it takes is one story for it to be even more capable.
Number 10, Loki. Loki has shifted so much in comics. He's technically a different character from that original Loki that first appeared in Venus issue number 6 and again in Journey into Mystery issue number 85. Loki's look originally was pretty silly, especially if we're talking about trying to adapt that look to the big screen and make it look menacing. We do get a version of that sort of original costume in the Loki series when we see an older, bitter, and sadder Loki who actually more reflects that original costume and that original Loki. Loki now appears to look much cooler in the comics and is also much more versatile when it comes to their style. This has also translated to the big screen where Tom Hiddleston's Loki has also gotten more and more dapper and stylish as time has gone on as well. At least that's how I see it. Number 9, Harley Quinn. I know people love the original costume, so this might be like kind of a hot take, but I personally think Harley has had so many amazing costumes and looks over the years that have just improved on what was already, well, good. I'm not saying the original costume was bad, to be clear. So yeah, I'm not saying the original costume that she had was at the level of some of the other ones on our list, Loki, being too much, you know, or too ridiculous, but I am saying that I think her design has only really improved with time. It's a compliment, Harley. Take it. Of course, not all of her looks have been winners in comparison to that original look, but I do think that her current outfit has definitely been one of her best that we've seen so far. And then of course there is her whole Birds of Prey looks, which I loved, and her The Suicide Squad DCEU look, which seems to have been inspired by more modern Harley Quinn comics and video game designs. And to be clear, we're talking about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad. Not David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Those are two very different looks, are they not? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about some more cool supervillain redesigns that we love, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, the Joker. The Joker is another character who has come a long way when it comes to his different looks. While his iconic face paint has remained, he's had many different outfits over the years, and many different iconic pieces that we would identify as being part of his costume. Purple and green remain the Joker's colors, but instead of wearing a suit with like a ribbon looking tie that kind of reminds me of something like a child would wear, like a kid in the olden days, or some kind of like floppy bolo tie. He is typically seen more in a trench coat that happens to be purple. Also, if anyone knows what that tie is called, it's like a little bow, but it's like a string. Let me know in the comments. I don't know what that's called. I do not know. The Joker looks less ridiculous and more menacing in modern comics, with the pranks of his earlier days also getting twisted along with his appearance. In more modern comic book tales, Joker has also been particularly terrifying, at one point having removed his face and stapled it back on in Death of the Family in 2011, and at another point sporting his own intimidating Joker-inspired Batsuit during Joker War in 2020. Both of these are great looks, but very different looks. Number 7, Toad. Toad has also had a lot of different looks throughout the years, with his original one being the most ridiculous. and also fitting, but also so ridiculous. But I'd say the real cool thing about Toad is that a lot of the time his outfits actually really reflect how he's feeling inside and his evolution as a character. This is why at first it's really no surprise that Toad basically is dressed up as a court jester in his first appearances. At that time that was basically what he was, acting as Magneto's often disappointing goon who wanted nothing more than to please his master, but usually kind of failed at doing so. Toad? As time went on, Toad would come to realize that he didn't actually need to settle for Magneto's mistreatment of him, and that he was no longer really indebted to Magneto. In various depictions of the character, he'd become somewhat more independent, and sometimes a lot more Toad-like in terms of his design. Fox X-Men movies, I'm looking at you. And in terms of his roles, he also even went from being a villain at Magneto's side in the comics to kind of a weird ally of the X-Men when he became the school janitor in Wolverine and the X-Men. Remember when that happened? He also at one point got a flaming tongue. So he's changed a lot. I don't know if I'm as here for the weird green flaming tongue, but I definitely feel like his look is a lot better now than it was before. Also like that he's kinda like a hacker now. I think that's cool. Number 6. The Riddler. The Riddler originally looked Jim Carrey levels of Riddler ridiculous when he first appeared in Detective Comics issue 140. And that's not a slight to Jim Carrey, by the way. I still love that version of the Riddler. Just also a side note, when I call things ridiculous or weird, it's not necessarily an insult coming from me. And while I do have respect for the Riddler's original question mark suit, I don't think it's necessary for him to be covered in question marks so that we know he's the Riddler. He likes riddles. We get it. Riddler has had a ton of redesign since that first appearance, with a good number of his modern takes being much improved on in comparison. Okay, so not all of the modern takes on the Riddler have been great. See Riddler with his hair shaved into a question mark shaped green mohawk. That was a weird time, but overall I think we can say we've seen a marked improvement. I also do love the recent redesign with Paul Dano playing the Riddler in the Batman film. I feel like this design for the character was definitely one of the most terrifying looks for him yet, and also fit really well with his origin and his backstory, and just with the overall tone of that film, which takes inspiration from the comics but very much grounds the character of the Riddler in reality, giving him more power as well in the process. I think. Like when you make it just not about like silly riddles and you make it about like what is the Riddler and why are there riddles and what is this really about? I mean, it's a powerful character.
At number 5, we have the Doom 2099 suit. In the series Doom 2099, Dr. Doom travels to the future to Latveria, the fictional European country that Dr. Doom is normally the ruler of. But somebody named Tiger Wilde is in his place, and his advanced technology is just too much for Dr. Doom to handle, so what does Dr. Doom do? He goes back to the workshop and builds himself what is basically known to be his strongest and most advanced armor yet. Aside from just looking really cool, this suit has a few new upgrades that help him get his old position of power back. This would include a phase shifter, which allows him to pass through solid objects, as well as a cyberspace link built into his armor. This allows him to gain access to cyberspace almost instantly and anywhere he is, as long as he's wearing the armor. Naturally, this helps Doom get his power back as he fights for Latveria alongside his allies. It's impressive what new armor can do to get you back on track, even when you're already one of the most powerful supervillains in the cosmos. Okay, at number 4 is Dr. Doom's Vibranium suit. This suit is put together by Dr. Doom when he swoops into Wakanda and steals a bunch of their vibranium reserves. For those of you who don't know vibranium, it's basically a highly durable metal that can absorb sonic energy, basically taking all of the force out of any impact that makes contact with the material. Due to this metal's abilities, it's one of the most valuable in the world, so when Wakanda finds itself vulnerable, Dr. Doom takes advantage and steals a bunch of it. The suit he makes looks pretty cool too, taking on a really menacing look with spikes and a glowing chest piece. But one of the biggest uses for this suit is that it apparently helps the wearer see all of the vibranium in the world. So for someone who's interested in strengthening their own personal weaponry or putting together a powerful army, this suit isn't just beneficial in its power. There's a huge advantage to locating and gaining access to the raw materials needed for a powerful, well-armored army. And Dr. Doom knows this, so his sights are then by all means set on finding more vibranium with this suit's new ability. Luckily for Wakanda, but also sort of sadly for them too, T'Challa is forced to render all the vibranium in the world powerless, making it also useless in its powers. At least for the uses that Dr. Doom had planned for it. But yeah, the Dr. Doom Vibranium suit. For the time being, it was pretty dang useful. At number 3 is the Dr. Juggernaut suit from the Heroes Reborn crossover event in 2021. In this storyline, Victor Von Doom is after more riches, but this time specifically the Gem of Sidorak, which, if you know your X-Men lore, is the source that gives Juggernaut his powers. And his look, I guess, because Dr. Doom doesn't just gain the insane super strength of Juggernaut, he also takes on the appearance of the villain as well. This suit is huge, bulky, and gives Doom enough confidence to try and take over the United States of America. He goes in and attacks different locations in Washington, D.C. in the hopes of setting himself up with a new moniker of President of the United States. Why are all these villains always after taking over America? I mean, don't they also find themselves going out into the cosmos to wage war for much greater causes and higher stakes? I guess there's just something about the White House that really gets these guys going. Anyway, this suit is sort of short-lived because Hyperion comes in and banishes Dr. Doom to the negative zone. I guess he just flies a little too close to the sun on this one. I mean, let's be honest. A target is painted right on his back as soon as he pairs up his powers with Juggernaut. They had to put a stop to that before it got out of hand. Next up at number 2 is the 2099 upgraded suit. Yes, believe it or not, there are 2 versions of the Dr. Doom suit in this storyline. As he's pushing to take back Latveria, his allies start to question his abilities and even his identity, wondering if it's truly the real Dr. Doom behind the suit. So, as he finally gets control back over his country, he also decides he wants to take over the US as well. See? That strange obsession with taking over America again. Anyway, in this event, he decides to flaunt his superiority by upgrading his suit again. And above all the abilities that this suit might have, it just looks the coolest out of any others on this list. At this point, he's upgraded his abilities to offer him a remote that automatically activates his time platform for him when he needs it, as well as a return to form with his boombots and the classic shrink ray. He also covers his eye slits with a red glass, making his appearance that much more menacing. And the biggest use of this suit in that crucial moment for Victor, which puts it higher on this list, is the simple yet essential function of galvanizing his troops and reminding them who their true leader is, in a time when he's in danger of losing his followers. Okay, finally at number 1, we have the Dr. Doom infamous Iron Man suit. So, after the events of Civil War II, Dr. Doom's mask has come off, and he's suddenly ready to try and make up for his past evil deeds. And coincidentally, Tony Stark also seems to be ready for a replacement. So Doom makes it his prerogative to take up the role of Iron Man and play hero for a while. The suit he wears as the new infamous Iron Man looks basically sort of how you'd imagine it looking. It's like an upgraded Iron Man suit with the iconic Dr. Doom cloak. But something about this combo just looks so cool. And it appears that it has some pretty unique features as well, like what appears to be a certain level of protection against harm without the suit even being activated yet, which is probably Doom's iconic force field, but mixed with the access to blasts of energy out of his hands and as well as flight and increased strength, it's pretty much a powerhouse having Dr. Doom and Iron Man's abilities mixed all into one suit. Iron Man with force fields, Dr. Doom with jet boots. Need I say more? This suit is definitely something new for Victor and a good way for him to start on his path of good. I'd say hold on to this suit for future use, Victor. It might come in handy many more times in the future.
Coming in at number 10, we have the homemade Miles Morales suit. I love when you go back through the comics and you find the first suit that every super put on. You have the janky Iron Man suit that was too bulky to fly, you have the old school Blade looking amazing in the 70s attire, and the famous purple pantsed Hulk. With Miles, we have a classic look of the sweater thrown over a black t-shirt with the black pants on. This suit is just amazing because it marks the dawn of a hero, the moment when you accept the fact that you're going to take on all the evil in the world and protect the people who can't protect themselves. And it shows how young, unexperienced, and unprepared Miles is to go out and fight crime. Those first few years as a super are some of the best comics you can read. It's fun watching the hero make little mistakes while trying to stop a bank robbery. It's a refreshing break from trying to stop Thanos from collecting the Infinity Gems. I gotta say, that's probably a lot easier. Coming in at number 9, we have Miles wearing Spider-Man. This happens a lot in comics. A superhero dies and then a less experienced hero with similar abilities puts on the suit to take up the mantle, so the world feels safe and no one knows that they passed away. We saw it happen in Batman when everyone thought that he was dead and Nightwing decided he would become the new Bat. And then the same thing would happen with Miles, but in a much less official way. In the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, there was the tragic death of Peter Parker. The world was now left without Spider-Man. Miles thought that New York should not be without the friendly neighborhood hero. Now, unlike Nightwing becoming Batman, Miles didn't have access to the official tools that Spider-Man had been using, so he ended up wearing a Spider-Man suit that a friend purchased for him from a Halloween store. You can imagine this wasn't the same quality suit that Peter Parker had been repping, but hey, a hero gotta do what a hero gotta do. Coming in at number 8, we have the Spider-Verse Spider-Man costume. Let's roll from one tacky, poorly fitting Spider-Man knockoff suit right into another. In the movie Into the Spider-Verse, we have Miles wearing a Spider-Man costume that he cuts eye holes into, and it's way too baggy for him. This is a hilarious look, and it really showcases the hero just starting out and having no idea what he's doing. Not only that, but Miles got this suit from Stan Lee himself. Do you guys remember that scene in the movie? Just a warning for anyone who hasn't seen Into the Spider-Verse. I don't know what you've been doing with your life, but there will be some spoilers coming up. In this scene, Spider-Man has just died. Miles goes into a store to get a Spider-Man costume. He then gets the suit from Stan Lee, and Stan Lee says, "I'm going to miss him." And this was right after Stan Lee had just passed away. I'm not confirming that me and my bro cried in the theater, but we might have cried in the theater.
Number 7, Ghost Panther. In this alternate reality called Warp World, the character T'Challa was merged with the character of the Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze. And can I just say how insanely amazing of an idea this is? The arrogant Prince T'Challa is exiled from Wakanda and goes to America, taking up the show name Johnny Blaze. After a fatal accident, Jericho Simpson, which is a warp between Brother Voodoo and Crash Simpson, invokes the demon Zarathos, who is the half-sister of the Panther goddess Bast. T'Challa actually refuses to become the spirit of vengeance at first, but eventually he did. Now, while this isn't really a Panther habit, it is a Black Panther Ghost Rider who rides a giant flaming panther, and yeah, I don't know, I'm not really seeing a downside here.
Coming in at number 6, we have the Cosmic Spider Suit. Even though some comic fans don't see Miles as a legit Spider-Man, he has made some amazing accomplishments and deserves to be respected. I want you guys to know that I think Miles is a first-rate Spider-Man, so don't destroy me in the comments, please. One of the most insane things that Miles has done is become Captain Universe. This took place in Spider-Geddon number 5, and it gave Miles a whole new look. The white, blue, and black cosmic look was extremely cool, and of course he had a slew of new powers at his fingertips. He had the ability to blast energy rays out of his hands, he could fly, he had hypnosis, he had telekinesis, and that is just a few of the powers that were passed down to him. When people become Captain Universe, they are sort of a Silver Surfer-esque being with the amount of cool things they can do.
Number 5, Mark 48, Cold Iron Armor. Another suit coming from the mind of Tony Stark of Earth 616 is the Cold Iron Armor, formerly known as Mark 48. It was first used by him after a stealth mission gone wrong, and Stark found himself in need of some reinforcement. At first glance, it doesn't look all that powerful in the conventional sense, but that's because it's specifically designed for the interaction with the magic realm rather than the human realm. What was otherwise a regular Iron Man suit was altered with the help of the magician Siobhan Haldane, who basically created something to help Stark survive in the world of the Dark Elves. The suit itself is made of cold metal, so just touching it weakens the Dark Elves, and it can also fire weapons made of that same iron, allowing the Armored Avenger to live up to his name just a little bit more, while being effective against the things that have a weakness to that material. All in all, this makes him deadly enough for the elves, who normally, for mortals, are a big threat, and that is why this suit is on our list today. Check it out for yourself in 2014's Iron Man Volume 5, number 24.
Coming in at number 4, we have Spider Tech. As time goes on, so do the cool possibilities for suits. This suit was featured on the cover of Miles Morales 13. At first glance, it might just seem like a standard suit, but when you get a closer look, you will see that there's much more going on. There's a digital logo displayed on the front of the suit that has an amazing effect. It kind of looks like this static thing going on, and the same effect is layered over the eyes. Also, the glowing red on the gloves and shoes just makes the whole thing pop. I love how this whole thing has a very near future look. I don't know how practical it would be to have glowing parts on your suit while you're fighting crime, but hey, I still dig it.
Number 3, Ngozi. Okay, so we've seen Ghost Panther and Panther Pool suits, but what about when the Black Panther is the host for a symbiote? A former track star who was in an accident that paralyzed her legs, Ngozi of Lagos, Nigeria eventually became bonded with the Venom symbiote. After Black Panther was killed by Rhino, who was trying to capture the symbiote, Ngozi and the symbiote instead defeated Rhino. Ngozi was recognized by the Dora Milaje, who took her to Wakanda, where she actually became the new temporary Black Panther. Ngozi herself now had the powers from the heart-shaped herb, as well as the powers from the symbiote, so her habit was obviously a little different. Imagine the vibranium-laced armor plus a Venom symbiote suit. Why am I asking you to imagine this? It's a comic, we have pictures.
Coming in at number 2, we have Weird World Miles Morales. Yes, this suit has to be one of the coolest in the whole Marvel universe. And I'm not even just talking about Spider-Man suits, this is one of the coolest of any superhero. I mean, let's just take a look for a moment. First of all, he has a cape, and I know Edna Mode preaches no capes because they're not practical and they're possibly very dangerous, but my god is this cool. It's all black with red webbing running through it, and then it comes with a hood. He looks like Batman crossed with Assassin's Creed. Then we top this off with the fact that this version of Spider-Man is whipping around daggers at everyone. Are you serious? A Spider-Man who uses throwing knives has to be one of the most lethal things on the planet. Coming in at number 1 is Into the Spider-Verse with the Jordans. Oh yeah. Into the Spider-Verse was a smash hit and introduced Miles Morales to a mainstream audience. I know many comic fans have been singing his praise from the mountaintops for years, but I feel like this movie was so incredible that mom and dad who don't read comics now know who this new web slinger is. And I have to say that this movie brings in one of the best suits that we have ever seen Miles in. Now, the suit doesn't give him any special powers unless you count looks that could kill. But in this movie, we have Miles wearing a black and red suit with the red logo sprayed on the front of the suit. Having the spray painted logo gives Miles such a unique look and showcases his personality coming through the costume. On top of this, we have him rocking a dope hoodie, jeans, and the Jordans. You gotta give it to Miles for having a pair of Jordans that match his suit perfectly. I do wonder if it makes it harder for his feet to stick to surfaces, but especially after the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, this has gotta be one of the best superhero suits ever.
Number 10, Mark 66. Trapped and alone in 1 million BC, we see our Tony Stark of Earth 616 forced to build a new suit from the materials around him in order to survive. Dubbed the Ice Armor, Mark 66 is powered by some vibranium batteries that he was able to salvage from the Extremis armor. However, it isn't capable of a whole lot considering how low tech it is. The armor seemed to only have very basic offensive capabilities, firing icicles from a wrist cannon. It was capable of repulsor blasters as well, but the more vibranium power the armor used, the more it melted because, you know, it's made of ice. As for defensive capabilities, the armor actually did a decent job because it allowed Tony to survive going toe-to-toe with Mephisto, but was quickly melted as a result of firing a massive energy blast to use the Time Stone. Take a look at this icy armor for yourself in 2020's Avengers Volume 8, number 31. Number 9, Bio Armor Mark 1. Hailing from Earth 55,921 comes a Tony Stark with a bit of an interesting twist. Maria Stark got bit by a monkey when she was pregnant with Tony and contracted a regenerative virus that mutated Tony's body in a pretty terrible way. His body grew some additional neural tissue throughout his body, meaning that his entire body was treated like a brain. So he was incredibly smart, but in constant pain due to overstimulation. Upon his birth, his dad coated his skin in a bacterial bioarmor in order to protect his skin. Fast forward a little bit, we see Tony working on his own versions of the Iron Man technology, and he became the Tony Stark that we all know and love. Besides the, you know, whole my body is a brain thing. Aside from just being a shield for Tony's chronic pain, the suit is also capable of flight, repulsor blasters, has a thought scrambler that can temporarily shut down all mental functions, and can even cut off superpowered beings from using their powers. This suit does actually have its limitations though, as it feeds directly off its user, which doesn't really matter too much for Tony, since his entire body regenerates. But if anyone else used it, they would be in some serious trouble. Check it out for yourself, starting with its first appearance in 2005's Ultimate Iron Man #1. Number 8. Overload Armor. Appearing in the What If Marvel series, we have a Tony Stark of Earth 64,894 and his Overload Armor. After his first suit proved to be pretty much a success, Tony decided to patent his new technology and sell it off to the world. But this proved to be a bit of a problem because it created this huge arms race between governments and effectively ended the age of heroes since naturally powered heroes couldn't keep up with the new tech enhanced ones. Because of this, Tony became a bit of a loner and sealed himself off because he feared that he would get hurt or even killed for the outcome of his actions. But he never stopped working on new tech just to stay ahead of the game. This is where the Overload Armor came into play, a massive suit that Tony used to absorb all of Magneto's magnetic powers, causing the suit to explode and envelop the planet in an energy wave that would render all of his tech useless, sending the world back into the Dark Age. After fighting with Magneto and his acolytes, Tony made up for his sins by not only taking down the villains, but also by forcing the world, in a very nice way, to use their funds for less harmful technology. Check out this suit for yourself, starting with 1994's What If Volume 2, number 64.
Coming in at number 7, we have the Ultimatum Suit. Dimension traveling Spider-Man, that's just something that comes up in the comics again and again. And when we see Ultimatum Miles Morales, it doesn't even look like any Spider-Man I know. And that's partly why I put it on this list. It's good to have a little variation, baby. The Ultimatum Suit looks like a collage between different heroes put together. And I'm gonna say it's not my favorite suit of all time, but it does have some pretty cool elements. On the back, it looks like it has Captain America's shield. The chest seems to have the circle plate glowing thing that Thor has going on. And then when you step back and look at the whole suit put together, there's some major Giant Man vibes.
Number 6. Mark 45 Deep Space Armor. For a brief period of time, Stark traveled out into space to work with the Guardians of the Galaxy in hopes of understanding what was happening in the cosmos just a little bit better. In order to do so, he needed to create a suit that not only allowed him to survive the harshness of space, but also allowed him to move around with ease. The deep space armor that he created is absolutely incredible, as it's capable of traveling at warp speed for interplanetary travel, featured upgraded versions of all his normal weapons, and came equipped with an armor extension similar to the Hulkbuster armor known as the Saturn V armor, specifically designed for landing on harsher planets. The suit also came equipped with the upgraded Pepper AI system, which was capable of taking over the suit in case of emergencies, and it had the Stark Omniversal multitasking software installed in it, meaning that Tony could control all of his suits on Earth from light years away. This suit is one of the most adaptable models Tony has ever created, and I highly recommend you check it out for yourself, starting with its first appearance in 2013's Iron Man Volume 5, number 5.
Shuri's suit. As I said before, there was a point in time when T'Challa was attacked by the forces of Dr. Doom, putting him in a coma. The one who took up the mantle of Black Panther was his sister, Princess Shuri. Along with the powers that come with consuming the heart-shaped herb, Shuri also received a panther habit. None of us should be surprised to know that Shuri herself, while being perfectly capable of hand-to-hand combat, prefers using weaponry and tech. This is reflected a little bit in her habit, which is a bit more tech-savvy. Her tech and weaponry include a truncheon capable of dishing out electric shocks, shock nets, snake bites, which are pellets used to immobilize enemies by releasing knockout gas, and desert sand, which are microscopic sand-like devices that can release an EMP. The claws on Shuri's habit were made of vibranium shells encased by adamantium, which is a little overkill, but nice. She also used to carry standard Wakandan-made spears. She now appears to have Zuri's Spear of Bashenga, which belonged to the founder and first king of Wakanda.
Number 4. Mark 29 Extremis. Yep, that is right, I'm actually talking about the Extremis armor this time. In an attempt to take down the Extremis-powered Malin, Tony did the only logical thing he could think of. Inject himself with a modified dose of Extremis to heal his injuries and allow him to pilot a suit that he'd been working on that was a bit tougher and a lot lighter than anything else he had built before. The modified dose allowed the crucial undersheath of the Iron Man suit to be super compressed and stored in the hollows of Tony's bones. The undersheath became directly wired to Tony's brain, which allowed him to control the new Iron Man armor with thought and even interface with other technologies. As one of Tony's more famous and recognizable suits, you probably already know a bit about it and what it's capable of, but I'm gonna give you the rundown anyways. This suit was capable of regeneration for both the suit and its wearers, could be piloted remotely, allowed Tony to access pretty much any form of technology, could time travel, and was pretty adaptable as the neural net would not only protect the wearer from superpowered attacks, but could also simulate them. Also, can't forget that it came equipped with the standard unibeam, pulse bolts, and flight ability as well. Why not check it out for yourself, starting with 2005's Iron Man Volume 4, number 4.
Coming in at number 3, we have Miles Cross Carnage. Whenever a symbiote gets onto someone, it makes them 10 times cooler, and when this creepy liquid alien managed to hook its claws into Miles, we got a variant look that is insanely cool. The black and red cross with the flowing being of the symbiote really makes the suit look way cooler than a lot of the other versions of Carnage. Maybe not cooler than the Green Goblin, but that's a whole other beast. My favorite thing about this look is the spiral on the face. The sort of hypnotic spin that is entrenched in the face really gives off an image of insanity, and when Carnage is pulling the strings, you know things are going to get a little crazy.
Number 2, Mark 68. Now, if you're not familiar with the more recent Iron Man storyline, don't worry, I will not spoil too much of it for you, but just in case you don't want to know anything about it, you might want to skip ahead a little bit. After Tony finally realized he was the real Tony Stark, it's weird, I know, but it makes sense in context, trust me, he started working on this specific suit using all of the virtual resources available to him. What sets his suit apart from his other suits is that it's not actually made of metal or any matter at all. This suit is composed of solid holograms from the E-scape. This allows Tony to create any weapon he could possibly think of, including repulsor beams and unibeams. The armor also augments Tony's strength to the point where he could easily rip apart the armor of his brother Arno. Now defensively, the armor can protect against any standard weapons like missiles and unconventional ones like repulsor beams as well. I think the best way to sum up the suit is with a quote from Tony Stark himself. "Come on, Arno, still making armor out of metal? How very 2020. I'm a futurist. My new suit's made of an entire world, the E-scape. Solid hologram, virtual armor, it's only my limit. My imagination." Take a look at this armor for yourself, starting with 2020's Iron Man 2020, Volume 2, Number 5. And Number 1, Xiran Armor. Making its debut in What If Newer Fantastic Four, a new iteration of the Fantastic Four was introduced to us made up of Iron Man, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk. This iteration goes up against Thanos as they are apparently the best chance of taking him down, and they do actually succeed with Wolverine cutting off his arm. But anyways, I'm gonna focus on the Xiran suit now. When Xiran, the tester of the Celestials, was murdered by Thanos via the use of the Infinity Gauntlet, the newer Fantastic Four brought Xiran's arm through their modified Negative Zone portal where Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, who had been permanently separated from the Hulk at the time, could study it properly. After learning that the Celestials controlled their armor via sheer willpower and thought alone, Tony managed to adjust the armor to respond to human thought, and linked it to the Negative Zone using Mr. Fantastic's technology, and then took control of the armor and made it his own. The actual capabilities of this suit are not fully known, but with the vast cosmic powers it should possess, the armor is able to withstand planet-shattering impacts with ease, and the armor is able to withstand strikes from nuclear warheads, and is said to even be more powerful than some of the Celestials out there. And not to mention, it's said to be even more powerful than the God Killer Mark II. If you've got any more info on this suit, please let me know in the comments below. I am honestly in love with it and would love to know some more. For now though, check it out for yourself in 2009's What If Newer Fantastic Four.